Irresistibly Found, copyright 2018. This book is a work of fiction. The names, characters, places, and incidents are the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemble to actual events, business establishments, locales, or persons, living or dead, is entirely coincidental. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of both the copyright owner and the publisher. The only exception is brief quotations in printed reviews. The scanning, uploading, and distribution of this book via the internet or via any other means without the permission of the publisher is illegal and punishable by law. Please purchase only authorized electronic editions and do not participate in or encourage electronic piracy of copyrighted materials. Your support of authors' rights is appreciated. Published in the United States of America. Copyright 2018 Victoria Pinder, Love in a Book. All rights reserved. Chapter 1. Martha parked her bicycle in the shade of the high-rise on Miami's white sandy beach. Her heart beat 1,000,000 miles a minute, and it wasn't from the trek in the 100-degree heat. She brushed her slightly damp hands against her jeans and gazed out at the clear blue ocean. Today had the possibility of a new start, a change to her life for the better. Who knows? One conversation never hurt anyone, or so she'd told herself over and over since coming up with the bold plan during the middle of the night. The lobby was 3 floors all on its own, with elevators to the west and east side. The all-white Italian marble desk that the security staff sat behind probably cost more than her entire year's tuition. Toward the ocean was a lounge with a central fire pit that no one was using in the middle of the scorching day. Security cleared her pretty fast once she showed her college ID and mentioned who she was there to see, and they directed her to the 45th floor. "Take the east elevator," one of the uniformed men said. "Thank you." Martha hugged her backpack straps close to her body and rode the elevator up, getting off on the 45th floor. She peered out into the hall, which gave her an option of 4 doors, 4502. She held her breath as she reminded herself that she had nothing to lose, and knocked. Too soon, the dark-haired, brown-eyed, muscular college senior she saw every Wednesday as he waited in her line for coffee stood before her. His shirt partially unbuttoned, and stared at her like she was a complete stranger. Okay, she was, but still. Martha lifted her chin and offered her hand to shake while she asked, "Jordan Bentley?" He blinked as he tried to place her, looking arrogantly down his nose. It was clear he had no idea who she was or why she was in his hallway. "Yes, we go to college together." She steadied her legs to brace for impact as she held his gaze, and then said what she never thought she'd say to anyone. "My name is Martha Vargas. I'd like to apply to be your wife for 30 days. His intake of breath and wide eyes showed his surprise, even as his shoulders straightened from a casual slouch. "Excuse me?" Her face felt hot. This had to be the stupidest thing she'd ever done, but if anyone needed the money, it was her, now. Martha had received a letter in the mail that said her scholarship was in danger of losing its funding, which meant she'd never finish college, just as her mother and everyone she'd ever known, except Ricky, had predicted. She refused to turn back now. She adjusted the weight of her backpack on her shoulders. "I know there isn't an official listing or a job application to fill out, but I wanted to meet you and see if we might help each other." Jordan motioned for her to come inside, so she walked through palatial white double doors into a condo that was fashioned out of a dream. The white marble downstairs in the lobby was nothing compared to his kitchen counter, and the expanse of floor was light bamboo, which was probably customized to whatever he wanted, instead of just using as it was built. He closed the door and crossed his arms. "How do you even know about—" "Right." She interrupted him before he went further, in fear of being thrown out. If someone knocked on her dorm room door with an insane plan of a marriage of convenience, she'd slam it closed in his face. But this was no dorm, and the plan was his, actually, with a few tweaks. "You asked Jessica yesterday when you were both outside near the bay, and she turned you down because she's knee-deep in love with Matthew and didn't want to ruin her chances with him." His hand covered his chin while his big brown eyes studied her. For a second, he didn't move at all. Martha tried to stand tall, so she didn't shake and give away her nerves. He dropped his hand and asked, "Jessica told you?" No. Martha had been walking home from her barista job in the same way she strolled every night. Normally, no one was in her path. She pushed her hair behind her ear and said, "Not exactly. I overheard you both talking at the library entrance that overlooks Biscayne. It wasn't like you were whispering." He'd seemed very confident when he'd proposed the opportunity to a surprised Jessica. "But later on I saw Jessica with Matthew, who also lives at my dorm, so I figured she must have turned you down." Huh. Jordan directed her to his living area, and she noticed his bare feet, so she quickly kicked off her black Reeboks. He didn't comment while she pushed them near his door before she followed him. "So you thought you'd just come over to my apartment and propose?" Well, she was running out of options, and the scheme, at least in her head, didn't sound that awful. It gave them each what they wanted. She nodded. "Finding out where you live wasn't easy, and that took me a few hours. I'd hoped to be here earlier." His eyes widened as his only expression. How was he so in control of his reactions? Maybe she was just looking for more because of her psych classes. He shook his head a little. "How did you even?" She offered her brightest smile and stayed still. "We have a school directory. I found it online in the email database." Jordan slowly eyed her up and down. Her light blue shirt was only slightly wet from her ride here, and her jeans were clean. The lack of jewelry might be all he really noticed, or maybe her lack of makeup, or her brown hair in the messy bun. She wasn't a fashion model, but she wasn't awful. She bit her lip and waited for him to finish his scrutiny. He motioned for her to sit on the white leather couch, and he took the matching chair opposite her. "And you go to college?" The fact he hadn't thrown her out yet should make her feel at ease. However, her skin still had goosebumps despite the record-breaking heat she'd pedaled in to get here. She swallowed and wished he'd offer her water, but she wasn't going to ask. She kept her gaze steady and said, "Yes, I live in the dorm. Before I agree, though, I'll need proof that what you said is true about the money and how much you're willing to pay for a 30-day wife." Her needs were not that large, but to have no debt after her schooling would be a relief. He shifted in his seat, assessing her, and at last scratched his chin. "It could be a maximum of 60 days. It all depends on how fast the bank releases my inheritance and how fast my lawyers file." Good. So he wasn't saying no. This might be her only chance to finish college. She nodded like they were in a boardroom and not in his deluxe condo. "I totally understand, and I'm 100% free of any romantic entanglements." The jeer he made with the flick of his tongue instantly made her feel like the ugly duckling. Since she was invisible in her jobs as she served his crew, she didn't take it personally. He straightened. "Yes, I can guess that, but let's be completely honest, Martha. We're not in each other's circles. Why would you want to marry me? Money. Maybe someone like him, related to royalty, would never understand being poor." She'd been hungry growing up, and once she turned 14, she'd gotten her first job and never stopped working. She'd studied hard all her life because she believed her teachers when they'd said education was her way out of poverty, and she wasn't going to lose her shot because of funding drying up. The handsome prince in front of her knew nothing about suffering. She opted for the truth. "I've never seen $100 million. I've probably never seen $1,000 unless you count a rent check that a few of my friends put together every month. I'm here on scholarship and loans, and I just got word that one of the programs has closed. I'm terrified of being stuck in this cycle no matter how hard I work. I don't want another burn from heated oils making French fries." She showed the healed scar on the inside of her wrist. Jordan studied her so intently that she realized his brown eyes had flecks of gold. She'd never been this close to him before. She crossed her legs and waited for him to say something, anything. Her body warmed. What did he see? It was true that they were different, but that could be a good thing considering the situation was temporary, if he agreed. She clasped her fingers over her knee. Was he going to kick her out? Finally, he opened his mouth and her heart leapt as she waited for every syllable that fell from his lips. "I'll need you to move in here, to a separate bedroom, of course, and we'll have to dress you better." The words took a minute to process in her brain. The pedaling and her 4-hour shift making coffee this morning hadn't given her time to rest before coming here to present her plan. Her skin buzzed. He wasn't kicking her out, but taking her offer seriously. Her heart began to beat faster, though she tugged on her clothes and held her nice shirt out slightly. My jeans and t-shirt are perfectly clean. I washed everything before trekking over here. His gaze instantly narrowed. Trekking? How did you get here? People like him had no idea that not everyone had a car or a yacht or whatever it was that he took to school every day. She released her shirt and looked down a little to see his reaction. My bicycle is parked outside your building. He leaned back in his chair and massaged his temples. Do you not have a car? Her nose wrinkled as she thought about her mother's last car that seemed to always break down. Her mother sweated paying the insurance every month until it was finally canceled. Martha pushed a strand of loose hair back and shook her head. No, those cost too much. I can fix my bicycle if it's broken. He made a tsk sound with his tongue that made her pay closer attention to his words. Campus is at least 10 miles from here. How have I never seen you? Actually, you have. Every week. She'd fantasized about him as he stood on the other side of the counter, looking effortlessly handsome in designer jeans, dark wavy hair falling over his forehead, and that beard of his that hid his smile this semester only made him sexier, like a mountain man who could rescue her if they were stuck in the wilderness. She'd also dreamed that she might save him from some crazy person, or that he'd suddenly wake up and see her beauty, like in a fairy tale. The reality was that he usually just nodded, no eye contact at all, and left the store with his coffee. Her face must be red because she was as hot as the burgers she overcooked during the lunch rush. You order a mocha latte every Wednesday. He narrowed his eyes and leaned closer. The coffee shop doesn't sell French fries. Fair enough. He didn't know anything about her. She hugged her waist, not wanting his pity. I have 3 jobs while trying to keep up my grades. He shook his head. Sarah, Martha. She looked up. He needed to know the right name to say during the vows. My name is Martha. Martha, he amended. I've never met anyone like you. I don't know if I can trust you. You seem like a walking disaster, no offense. He scratched at his beard. But I need a temporary wife and a quick divorce. I have no problems with that, Jordan. Martha answered fast and held up her hand like she was going to be sworn in on a Bible. He pressed his thumbs together between his legs. You'll have to look and act the part of my wife, which means quitting those jobs, and we'll need to figure out a cover story. Quitting was a dream all on its own, but she'd talk to her managers. Perhaps she could come back once the month was over, just in case this didn't work out. A cover story? He stared at her again like she was some alien he'd just seen and not a girl 1 year behind him in school. His lips were almost in a sneer while he chose his words. No one is going to buy that we decided to get married. The inheritance is clear that it can't be a sham, so we'll have to prove to my parents' former lawyers that you and I are genuine. It would take a lot of work. Okay, he didn't need to look so mean about that comment. Sure, she'd never gone to a salon that cost more than $15 to cut her hair, and even that seemed like a lot of money. But he didn't need to be insulting. She massaged her neck and said, You didn't mention this to Jessica. He sat back, like he knew she'd been offended. Jessica and I have gone to school together our entire lives. She's met everyone I know. No one's heard of Martha Vargas. Underneath their clothes, Martha was sure she was just as worthy as the bleached blonde with the sun-drenched skin from lazing around the pool. Well, Jessica probably had more curves, but she'd probably also never missed a meal. Martha was on the skinny side, though her hips and butt collected more than they should, but she wasn't frail or pitiful looking. She was pretty normal with her brown hair and brown eyes. She scooted closer to the edge of the couch. I can pretend to be in love with you for 30 days as long as we both agree to keep our hands to ourselves and stay in separate bedrooms. He nodded his fast agreement. That won't be a problem, Martha. Her heart shrank in her chest, though it shouldn't. She didn't move, but this was the first conversation they'd had about sex, and she wanted to be clear. Why? Are you gay? If you are, that's totally fine. He laughed, and his voice was like rich chocolate cake drenched in raspberry. No, I'm not gay, but you're not my type. Fair. She'd been the invisible woman in the green smock who made his latte. She stood. "Great, you're not mine either," which was her first lie. He rose and tapped one finger against his slightly thick bottom lip. "One more thing." Her body tingled, and she ignored that sensation as she looked away and asked, "Yeah?" He crossed his arm and widened his stance while he stared at her up and down like she should obviously know what he'd say. She met his gaze and waited because she had no clue. "We'll need a 3-day window to even see if you can pass in my world." A trial was smart. She'd like to know she could do this, and that it wasn't just a stupid plan born of desperation. She shook his hand, and electricity shot through her. Why 3 days? He didn't hide his perusal. Hair, makeup, and clothes will take time. "Saturday night, I'll take you to my brother's wedding reception as my date. If you can pull that off, we'll get married Monday morning and start the process." She knew he'd stared a second longer at her breasts than necessary. She didn't call him out on it. After all, she'd been checking him out too. "Sounds like a plan, and I get 100 million. She paused at the incredible number, "like you promised Jessica." He placed his hand on the small of her back and walked her to the door. 100 million, plus keep the clothes, makeup, jewelry, car, and anything else I give you during our brief marriage. Her heart beat fast just because he was near, and he smelled better than any man she'd ever met. At the door, she picked up her sneakers, curling her toes in her white and blue socks against the bamboo. This is the best job ever. Who cared that they were from different universes? They were never going to be romantic, and in a month she'd be richer than she'd ever thought possible. It was enough to finish school and start a new life. Jordan looked down at her feet and back up again, and simply said, "We'll see about that." Chapter 2. Martha Vargas tugged on her black sneakers that didn't look like Reeboks. Even though they had the R, Jordan kept his mouth shut while he went into his hall closet and found his Armani sneakers he'd bought in Italy over the summer. Martha unlocked the front door as if to go, and he called out, "Wait, I'm driving you." The rubber of her soles screeched in her sudden stop. She turned, jostling a strand of brown hair loose from her bun to fall around her face, her pink lips pursed. "But my bicycle?" If anyone was going to believe he'd married this girl from school, they needed to look and act like they were together, a couple. Right now, no one would ever believe it because they certainly didn't have much in common that he knew of. Jordan had to figure out how to bridge this gap between them before tomorrow night and his brother's party. Time spent with Martha might give him some insight. Martha was pretty in a wholesome way, but she wasn't anything like any other girl he'd ever met. There was no polish to her. He tied his sneaker and shrugged. "It will be here when we get back." Who would steal it? She bit her lower lip, suddenly acting like she might be shy or something. Her unease made her slightly cute, but he kept that to himself as she took a deep breath and asked, "Are you sure you want to start tonight?" He found his car keys and wallet. He was on a mission. He juggled the key in his hand to let her see it, and then motioned with his head, "Let's go." She waited for him as he locked the door and led her to his garage on the 45th floor. Her brown eyes were wide as he opened the car door while they were still inside, and then pressed a button for the custom elevator to bring them down to the first floor while they sat in the car. He didn't start his baby until they were on the first floor, but then he waved his electric key and the car purred to life. Jordan drove his silver Mazzanti Aventra Millicavalli down Collins and glanced at Martha in the seat beside him, her eyes wide as she took everything in. She was being quiet now, which felt strange after she'd been nothing but talkative. He checked the air conditioner temperature for her side and headed toward school. "Look, it's already Friday, though it's still early. We can get your things, shop, and schedule all the appointments you need." Jordan drove toward the university's garage, and Martha shook her head as if waking up from a nap. "My friends won't understand if I show up in your car." Right. This was part of the problem they had. No one was going to buy they were an item, and he needed his $10 billion inheritance, now. His parents had probably been murdered, and the more money he had, then the better security he had, and he could invest in alternative energy to save the planet. If he married Martha and divorced her in 30 days, then his name, which was 8th on the list to take over his uncle's throne, was scrubbed off as a possibility. Afterward, he'd have billions in the bank to do whatever he wanted with, no threats related to the throne against him, and most importantly, a chance to leave a legacy to show the Bentley name had at least tried to stop the damage of global warming. His brother, seventh on the list, had just divorced his wife this morning with the new wedding scheduled for early Saturday and the reception tomorrow evening in order to remove his ability to inherit. Unlike Aiden, who had fallen in love with his temporary bride, Jordan wasn't in love with anyone. He'd marry and divorce with no heartache thanks to Martha's timely offer. As he drove on to the outer edges of the campus, he tapped the steering wheel. You'll have to get your friends to believe this too. Everyone must be convinced Martha Vargas is in love with Jordan Bentley. She nodded her head like she was a duck for a minute and then scooted to the far side of her passenger seat, crossing her arms. And what about you? Do you have to pretend to be in love with me? Or am I pulling this off entirely by myself? Everyone knows I like women. He winked at her and headed to the dorms instead of his usual path toward his classes. The road curved slightly. Once we get you in better clothes and style your hair, people will see you are beautiful. She pointed toward the dorm on the right and dropped her arms, flashing him a huge smile. Wait, let me take that in. I don't just look like a servant, I'm slightly beautiful. Jordan grinned at her teasing. She really was pretty when she smiled. He parked the car with a shrug. It will be obvious to everyone we meet tomorrow. Unlocking the doors, Jordan went around and opened the passenger side for her. Her eyebrows arched as she joined him. Jordan Bentley, you're sweeter than I realized. I just thought you were a nodder. He walked beside her, though he ensured his car was locked first. A what? Their hips brushed against each other, and a stirring of interest woke inside him that he'd best ignore. Martha wasn't forever, and he was afraid he'd hurt her if he even tried to touch. The buzz in his veins warned him she was far too innocent for him. A customer who comes in every week never ever says anything but nods when I hand him his cup of coffee. Is that what I do? He put his hands in his pockets and thought back to his morning ritual. She was probably right. She bumped her hip into him again and smiled. Absolutely. Part of him wished he'd bumped into her for the first time right now. She bounced on her feet as they waited at the front door of her building, so full of life, whereas most other women he knew did their best to be unaffected. He tilted his head and said, I've never been to the dorm. Can I see your room? Sure. She motioned for him to walk with her inside the building. A blonde guy exited the laundry room, right next to the front door where she stopped to sign into the dormitory. No security guards here. The boy flashed him a look of disdain. Jordan put his hand on Martha's shoulder, and once she finished signing his name in the book, he gestured toward the guy who'd reached the set of elevators. Martha, who is that? Just my friend Ricky. She waved to him, but directed Jordan to a different elevator. As the metal doors opened, she said, I have class this afternoon, Jordan, but I can be ready to move after 5. Jordan glanced at Ricky, who clearly overheard their conversation and clutched his basket tighter, but he didn't talk to Martha, so Jordan escorted her inside the elevator. He'd never been in any of the dorms, not even for a party. The dorm smell made his nose itch, though he couldn't quite place what it was. Cleaner? He ignored it and asked, What class? Psychology of Childhood and Adolescence. The doors opened, and to his relief, the hallway didn't smell as bad as the elevator. They walked 4 rooms down, and she unlocked her door with a huge key. He followed her inside. Is that for your major? She locked the door immediately upon closing it as she said, Yes, one day I'd like to be a doctor of psychology. Her walls were white and bare, not even a poster. Her closet was open wide, and he saw the sparseness. His sister could never live in this shoebox without complaining. He couldn't imagine it either. Martha had a laptop 5 years out of date, a tiny bed with plain white sheets, a yellow blanket with green and blue flowers, and enough clothes that might serve for a few days at most. She must do laundry all the time, which might explain how she knew Ricky downstairs. He pressed his lips together and acknowledged the sense that this room felt rather poor. He shrugged it off and said, I'm a business major. I'd have guessed. She added the laptop from her desk to her backpack. The laptop must be 10 pounds or more as her back tightened when she tugged it over her shoulders. If he was her real husband, he'd get her something she could carry without making that face. Okay, I'll pick you up and make all of your appointments for tomorrow. Don't forget, no more making coffee or serving fries this month. None of my friends or family would ever believe we were together if you worked in those fields." "All right, so what do you think of the dorm?" She gestured around her barren room. "It's not fancy, but it serves my needs." The white walls were so thin that he could hear footsteps outside the door. He pointed at her closet, glad that she was staying at his place where he could make things easier for her. "It's not somewhere I'd live. You hardly have any clothes hanging. Are they at the dry cleaners?" "No." She made a face as if he were crazy. "These are all I have." She'd need everything, he realized. Clothes, new computer, hair, and makeup. He'd skip his 1 o'clock class and prepare for her arrival. He took his phone from his back pocket and handed it to her. "Give me your sizes, including your shoes, in my notes app so I can have my personal shopper send you a few things for my house." She shook her head with those big brown eyes wide at his comment, but she typed into his app the information he'd requested. "We are from different worlds, Jordan." "I see that." The air felt stale in her room, cramped, with no view to the beach. The window behind him overlooked the parking lot, and the air conditioner must be on the fritz. He kept all these observations to himself, and instead said, "But you're going to be in mine for the next month or two, and we need you looking the part. Also write down your phone number and email." She continued to type, and then handed him his phone back. "I'll need yours too, so I can call when class ends." "Fair." He pressed her phone number and his phone dialed automatically. "Here, I'll call you now." She tapped ignore on the call and sighed, her shoulders bowed. "Can I ask you a question?" He saved her number and then put his phone in his back pocket. "Sure, we're about to live together and get married. I can answer a few questions." "Thanks." She motioned for him to sit next to her on the small bed, built for one. As there was nowhere else to sit, he followed her directions and noticed her skin smelled like vanilla. He ignored the sweetness, but stared into her clear, makeup-free face. "You seem like one of the good girls who are also smart." Her blush was obvious, though she lowered her head like that might hide it, and said, "I try to be." She probably knew how to take care of herself when it came to self-defense. Yet she'd come to his condo, a woman alone, and invited him to sit on her bed without fear that she couldn't handle what happened next. She was either unapologetically sure of herself, or she was clueless. Something ticked in his veins that there was more to Martha than first met the eye. She turned toward him, and he said, "I thought people like you couldn't stand people like me." Her lips parted in surprise. "What do you mean?" Jealousy was a real thing, and he'd heard and seen many people talk about him. He leaned a little closer but stayed inches apart. "I've never been poor. I have the right connections to open whatever doors I want, and I feel like I'm taking advantage of you." Her head rocked back in shock, but then she patted his knee. $100 million is more than I ever dreamed possible, so there is no taking advantage. I am being paid to do a job for you." This wasn't enough. That was the paycheck, and they could be enemies, and he'd still honor the agreement. "I want to do something else for you." "Like what?" Her brown eyes softened as she listened to him. Perhaps she was right that they needed to be at ease with each other. Gifts usually worked on women. He stood from the twin bed and stared down at her. "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." She jumped to her feet and picked up her backpack, slinging it over a strong shoulder. Her gaze warmed him from the inside out. "Don't stress about it. I'd like for us to find a way to be friends." "No." Ice returned to his veins as he shook his head. "I can't be friends with you." Her eyes narrowed, clearly confused. Why not? This was something she needed to understand. Fast, he reached out and brushed her arms, again ignoring the raw chemical reaction she caused inside him. He swallowed back the feeling and said, "Because despite our upcoming nuptials, you're still you and I'm still me. Separate bedrooms. I don't like to hang out with beautiful women I can't have at my beck and call." She laughed as she tilted her head up at him. "I've never been at any man's beck and call. I can tell." His lips tingled to taste her and see if she was as sweet as he imagined. A knock sounded on her dorm door. "Kiss me goodbye, Martha. I should go." Her eyes widened for the last time, but she unlocked the door, tugged on his collar and closed her eyes as she stood on her tiptoes. His entire body hardened while she said, "Jordan Bentley, I'm looking forward to tonight." "Yes." He tried to pull back, but then she pressed her lips to his in a rush of heat that took him by surprise. A firestorm erupted in his pulse, and he wrapped his arms around Martha. No woman he'd ever kissed packed so much into a simple kiss. Chapter 3. Martha took her phone out the second the professor left the classroom. No message from Jordan. She picked up her backpack and put it on, paying no attention to her surroundings. Usually the humidity in the outside hall jarred her skin after the cold, air-conditioned classroom. But today, she didn't notice. She typed into her phone, "Class ended early, Jordan. I'll wait in my dorm room for you." She saw the dots that meant he was already typing a response. Had he been waiting for her? Martha walked onto the path that led back to the dorm. Her pulse spiked until she finally received the message and read, "Be there in 20 minutes. I've had your room at the condo completely redone." Hopefully that meant new sheets, but it didn't matter. Clean was just fine with her. She smiled into the stuffy, hot air that was South Florida's everyday life and quickly typed back, "I don't know what it was to begin with, but thanks." A shadow came behind her, and she slowed her pace. She stuck her phone in her back pocket and turned around to see Ricky. His blonde hair and blue eyes had made many girls swoon, though to her, he'd always just be sweet Ricky. She waited for her friend. "Martha, there you are." She let out a sigh and tugged her backpack straps to adjust the weight she carried as they walked toward their dorms. "Hey, what's going on?" "Study hall." Ricky bumped his arm into hers, but she moved away. She'd noticed Jordan's curiosity about her and Ricky being friends. Heading to work soon? Today, she'd quit 3 jobs for at least a month. For the first time since she'd been legally allowed to work at 14, she didn't have a job to go to, other than learning how the other half lived. Hair and makeup, like an actress. "No, actually, I'm going out." His gaze narrowed. "With Jordan Bentley?" She arched a brow in rebuke. Ricky wasn't her boyfriend. They'd never dated or even gone for coffee. They were friends, so he shouldn't sound jealous. "Yeah, is that a problem?" He backed up with a big-eyed expression of surprise. "No, I just don't want you to get hurt. That kind of guy isn't for you." Jordan had kissed her like she'd mattered. Her lips actually tingled after he'd ended it. Her heart sped up at the unexpected chemistry, and she sucked her lips into her mouth as if she might still feel that kiss. Ricky's stare brought her into the present. "So, cheeks hot?" she asked. "Why not, Ricky?" Ricky puffed up his chest like he'd say something important, but then he deflated. "Because he's entitled, spoiled, rich, and he'd never appreciate a girl like you." She pushed her hair behind her ear and didn't look up as they passed the sparkling blue bay. This was where she'd overheard Jordan and come up with her entire scheme. She let heat rise in her belly, then snapped her head up and turned toward her friend as she listed while counting her fingers. "First off, I'm not a girl, Ricky. Second, Jordan's been sweet. And third, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt." Ricky shook his head and continued walking beside her. "So you're falling for the guy already? How did you even meet?" "Good question." Jordan had mentioned they'd work on their cover story tonight. She pressed her lips together as Ricky wouldn't believe anything too far off. She swallowed and looked at her sneakers. "He orders coffee from me every Wednesday." Ricky's voice rose as he asked, "And he asked you out at work?" "No." Impossible stories were a bad idea. She turned behind her and saw the bay in the background. Truth was best, or as close to it as possible. She side-glanced Ricky as they neared the dorm. "I saw him the other night, talking to Jessica on my way home from work." Ricky's face seemed hard and his jaw set. "And he left Jessica for you?" No." That already sounded like a lie. She peered up at the golden sun in the blue sky and wished she was better at making up stories. Her skin felt itchy, so she looked away and tugged her ear while she stared at the dorm. Thankfully, they were close now, so she could run from this conversation soon. Her pace stayed normal as she said vaguely, "I tried to avoid them, but then Jessica left and we sort of bumped into each other. It's been fun spending the morning with Jordan, and now tonight, we have a date." It was the best she could do or say, but Ricky needed to believe she'd been swept off her feet in love, at least for a month. It was part of the deal. Ricky opened the door for her. "Oh, well, I still think you can do better than him, Martha. Talk to you later, Ricky." She turned toward the elevator that was closest to her room, but 4 men in red moving uniforms jumped in front of her and held papers for her to sign. She blinked as she read the invoice without numbers and asked, "Who are you?" The man with the pen and clipboard nodded and answered, "We're your professional movers, ma'am." "What?" Jordan said he'd take care of things, and this certainly made everything happen fast. At the other elevator bank, Ricky stared at her while she signed the papers and handed them back to the movers with a nod. "Right. Well, thank you." She pressed the button to escort the movers up, but Ricky called out, "Wait, Martha, where are you going?" Well, she'd not be here to get breakfast with their squad anymore, and Ricky must doubt she'd move in with someone this fast. He also knew about her scholarship issues for next year. Hopefully he understood. She swallowed and said, "Jordan offered me the extra room at his condo." The look Ricky gave her had so much electricity in it that she was sure he'd start a forest fire. She backed into the elevator as he said, "You're joking, you just met." Martha couldn't let him think the worst. She handed her key to the mover and hopped out of the elevator. "I'll be right behind you." Meeting Ricky halfway in the lobby, she asked, "We've been friends for a few years now. Do I wait when I want something?" He viewed her like she was some horrible bug he'd like to squash instead of a friend. "For schoolwork, yeah, but you've never been like that with a guy." But it wasn't out of character. She looked up into his fierce blue eyes and shrugged. "Jordan's special." Ricky stepped back, and the bleakness in his expression hit her with its raw emotion. "Guess you're not who I thought you were, Martha." Score 1 for him. He was right. If she was honest with herself, she'd never just move in with a guy she'd just met. Her behavior should make her friends question her actions, but she'd made a deal. Over Ricky's shoulder, she saw Jordan's silver car that could probably outrun a bullet. She backed away. "Bye, Ricky. Jordan's here." She saw Jordan through the window as she raced to her elevator. She'd have a minute at most alone with the movers, not that she had any special requests. The doors closed, and she rushed to her room. Inside, the movers had put all of her belongings in boxes and onto a handcart. Jordan knocked on the open door behind her to announce his presence. She turned, and her heart lifted in her chest. "Who were you talking to downstairs?" Goodness, she didn't know how to explain how Ricky's comments made her skin feel icky and her soul guilty. Was she making a mistake? No, this was a job. She shook her head and avoided the conversation as she walked over to him and took his hand. "Doesn't matter. Thank you for the movers. They are literally doing everything." He offered his arm. "It's why I paid them. Are you ready?" The movers had everything under control, and honestly, she didn't have anything worth stealing. Her most valuable things were her laptop in her backpack and her gold cross around her neck that her grandmother had given her. She accepted his offered arm. "Yeah, I guess. It's overwhelming that all of this is happening. Wait until we get home." He patted her hand, like she belonged at his side. This time, when they went down the elevator, no one was there to make her feel like she was drowning in her own machinations. This was all her idea. Jordan held the door open for her, and she stepped into the afternoon sun. On the drive to Jordan's condo, she had no idea how she might explain this to her mother next. Ricky thought her a horrible person for falling so fast. What would her mother say? She let her head rest on the soft leather seat and didn't say a word. Finally, they passed the ocean, and Jordan drove into his building and carport. He didn't even have to get out, but once he turned the car off, the elevator was directed to his floor. He unlocked her door, and they stepped out into his elevator garage and went inside the condo. Jordan knelt down and untied his sneakers. She kicked hers off, toe to heel. "Jordan, why do you take your shoes off? Did you live in Asia or something?" He picked up her shoes and put them in the hall closet next to his. "Why let the germs in? The maid comes 3 times a week to clean everything, and until I moved to a house, I figured that was enough, so long as I take precautions." Yes, his life was so different. She'd never had anyone pick up after her or worry about germs on the floor, not even her mother, who was a nurse. Maybe she'd have had less colds or flu. She gingerly walked into his condo and felt alone. She massaged her arms to rid herself of goosebumps as she asked, "You have a maid?" Jordan motioned toward a dining room with silver coverings over what must be hot food. "We have a maid and a chef. The chef prepared my favorites that he thinks you'll enjoy." We can eat when you are ready." She leaned on the back of the white leather couch she'd sat on earlier and pointed to a room across the hall. "Oh, is that my room?" The door was slightly ajar. "Yes, the one opposite it, facing the beach, is mine." He walked beside her, and a thrill rushed through her. He was so close, she could feel his body heat through their clothes. She dropped her arms to her sides until he opened the door to her new place. The room had a queen-sized bed, with a yellow flowered duvet and cream sheets that must be 1,000 thread count and soft. She'd worked in a high-end department store her junior year of high school and understood the bedding department. The bed itself and the bureau were modern and also cost serious cash, but those might have been there before today. She zeroed in on the new thin laptop and then opened the closet door. Designer clothes and shoes with red heels and names she couldn't even say now lined the closet. Jeans, slacks, dresses, skirts. There was no way he expected her to wear all of this. She went to school and work. This was her new uniform. He stayed near the door, watching her with hooded eyes. "That's your computer. In the closet are some clothes. Hair and makeup will be here at 7 as I paid for an emergency session." Again, her skin prickled. She wasn't a charity case. She was here to work and not be impressed. She lifted her chin and met his gaze. Why an emergency? He pushed his hand in his pocket and circled the room, like he didn't want to come in. His face was so serious, she was sure he didn't want to answer. His lips were tight, but finally he said, "I don't want to insult you. Instead, I hope you enjoy our dinner and we can learn about each other. Tomorrow night, people will expect us to know each other's preferences and dislikes." Fair. She took a deep breath and let Ricky's judgmental words wash away. It wasn't right that she'd made Jordan feel uncomfortable in his own home. She swallowed, tried to shake off her fears, and walked over to him. "Okay, what is it you want to know?" He motioned for them to leave the bedroom. She dropped her backpack on the floor next to the desk with the fancy laptop. She then nodded and followed him out as he asked, "First, I want to know what's going on with you and why you're acting shy now. This morning you were the opposite. You knew exactly what you wanted." I was dazed. "I apologize." She pointed to the door behind them as they headed to the dining room in just her socks. Somehow that didn't seem enough. Would he be upset if she invested in slippers? "You bought me everything I might ever need." He held out the chair for her at the table as he asked, "Are you saying you don't like the laptop or the clothes?" Wow, Jordan was really trying to read her. Her heart beat a little faster as she slipped into the seat and then waited for him to join her. Once he sat, she scooted in and said, "Thank you for everything. It's just a lot. I'm not used to anyone doing anything like that for me." He picked up his napkin and dropped it in his lap, his lips twitching. "I should mention the car in the garage now then." Her eyes blazed. A car? A computer was one thing, but a car was completely over the top. She didn't move, hoping she'd heard wrong. "What?" He leaned over and handed her a cloth napkin as he gazed right into her eyes. "Look, my wife is going to be expected to present herself in a certain style. I thought we discussed this already. So why are you unhappy now?" "Okay, fair." Martha gave a partial smile, deciding that she'd leave him the keys or pay him for the car out of her paycheck at the end. She put the napkin on her lap and shook off her sense of unease. Everything was perfect right now, and tomorrow she'd have her hair and makeup done. She would learn to be what he needed. "You're right, we did discuss this. I shouldn't let nonsense cloud my judgment." He sat back in his chair and opened a wine bottle for them. "Nonsense?" Once he unscrewed the cork, he said, "Don't worry about kisses unless a situation arrives at the wedding." Her heart stopped. He must think that all of this was because of that kiss that still rattled her. Her questioning her judgment because of Ricky's comments needed to stop, fast. She reached out and brushed her hand against his. "Oh, yeah, that's fine. But the truth is that wasn't what was on my mind." His brow lifted. What was, then? She took the offered glass of red and smelled it. Definitely not the cheap stuff that she usually drank. She sipped it and the wine exploded with robust flavor over her tongue. She put the glass down and took a deep breath as she met his gaze. Once she was sure she was okay, she told him the truth. "My friend Ricky told me I was crazy for falling for you so fast." Jordan's lips thinned. He's not here now. This relationship isn't real, so why would his words affect you? Because he knew me well and I'm supposed to make everyone believe I could love you. He challenged that. She swallowed and stared at Jordan. He was the fairy tale guy women dreamed about to come sweep them of their feet. It was so obvious why she might fall for him. Not that she had, but any woman in their right mind would. She lowered her eyes. I've never been considered normal or pretty. I was always the smart one who worked hard. I don't know how to be the old me and get my friends to believe that we are together. We all change, Martha. Jordan picked up his fork. It's okay to have fun and not work all of the time. Perhaps tomorrow night I'll take out the new you to my brother's wedding reception. We'll see what happens. Sounds exciting, she admitted. She tasted her dinner of steak that somehow fell apart easily with the edge of her fork. She didn't even need a knife. Her mother tended to burn the steak, but this was tangy and succulent. She glanced across the table to Jordan a few times while she ate. Today felt like a dream already with him as the new star of her daily life. Perhaps this month would fly by, but for now he was right. She deserved to enjoy herself more. Chapter 4. Martha's curls were now straight and matched her face. Rossi, the hairdresser, had used her laptop to showcase various styles on her profile picture, and they decided together what would work with her cheekbones and jaw structure. Nobody at the $15 beauty salon had ever spent that much time studying her bone structure to compile the best possible cut for her face. After agreeing on a style, Rossi arranged an updo, which took several hours. The sun was in the late afternoon sky by the time they finished hair, and almost evening when they finished makeup. Martha watched her transformation in the mirror and held her breath as Rossi brought a red lipstick toward her, and Martha backed her face out of her path. You can't be serious. I don't normally wear red. Rossi shook her dark hair and held the lipstick close while she motioned for Martha to relax. It's dramatic. I thought this was for your boyfriend's brother's wedding, which means you're in the family photos. Boyfriend? Right. This was all part of his world, so she needed to fit in. She stared at the color again and blinked. I don't know. Relax. Rossi dabbed the color onto a brush as she said, let me finish. Martha couldn't turn away from her image in the mirror. No one, not even her mother, would recognize her. Rossi continued to paint the color on her lips and then used a gloss and something to matte everything. Once she was done, she put her tools down and stepped back as she said, there. Martha studied herself even more closely. This must have been what it felt like when going to prom. Not that she'd gone. Rossi offered her hand to help her stand, but Martha rose on her own. Rossi said, now let's get your dress on and complete this transformation. She stepped into a red dress and Rossi zipped her up. The fabric felt like cream around her body and wasn't tight or ill-fitting, but as if made for her. Martha saw someone who could be a princess standing in the mirror. She twirled to see the beads at the bottom of the knee-length dress shimmer. She stopped, grinning wide at her miracle worker in the flesh, in styled blue jeans. Martha hugged her tight. Thank you, Rossi. Not a problem. Rossi hugged her back and immediately tugged the dress to get out a wrinkle. You look ready for a party anywhere. Go have fun with your handsome young man. Martha nodded and held her fancy high heels in her hands as she hurried out the door. The living area was dark, but the patio was open. She left her heels near the door of the garage and knocked on the glass door to the balcony. She carefully stepped outside, afraid she might ruin something. Jordan, are you out here? He left the ledge that overlooked the beach, put his book down and eyed her head to toe. In his light gray tuxedo, he stole her breath away too, his dark eyes smoldering. You look gorgeous, Martha. Even better than I thought you would. I feel like an imposter, she said when he walked over and joined her. He pressed his hand to her shoulder to guide her inside. Why? All we did was change the dressing. You're still the same salad underneath. So I'm a salad? She kept in step beside him. His face went red, and he covered his bearded chin and lips with his hand until they neared the door, and he finally said, that probably came out all wrong. What did he mean? Her mind raced, and she picked up one of her shoes. Is that because I'm good for you? He knelt down and helped her into her shoes like she was Cinderella as she balanced against the wall. Once finished, he stood and met her gaze. You're definitely the main course, Martha, and not just an appetizer. Food had never turned her on before, but her body warmed at his insinuation. It wasn't because his hands brushed against hers even briefly. Okay, maybe it was. He guided her to his fancy car, and she saw a second black convertible next to his. She recognized the brand Mercedes. He didn't say a word about it, but opened the passenger door. She refused to ask if that was for her and took the seat beside him. Soon they pulled into the Blue Waters Hotel on Collins. He drove to valet and then helped her out. The second she was outside in the evening air, she heard harp music. Her skin buzzed with electricity as Jordan offered his arm to lead her inside. She slid her hand in the crook of his arm, and they entered the air-conditioned building. She drew closer. Was that an entire symphony? He led her through the lobby, and she gawked at the atrium that went up as far as the eye could see. Your brother is getting married here. They entered the ballroom, and he explained, remarried technically. Aiden decided to get his name off the list of potential heirs to the throne and divorced his wife yesterday. And they are remarrying today? Yes, they are in love. He led her to table number 1 and motioned for them both to sit. Why was that so important to you both? She watched his face for clues. We're to marry and divorce too, so I assume you're off the royalty list. Is the possibility of being the future king scary or something? In a way. He scooted closer like they shared some deep secret, and he took her hands in his while people walked around them. My parents were killed. The actual former king, my uncle, his wife, and his 6 sons were all falsely arrested, and we think it has to do with the crown of Hoshkel. As I was born here and never visited, I'm fine staying in America. Her jaw dropped when he mentioned killed and arrested, and at the same time her heart skipped. When he finished talking, she cupped his cheek. I'm so sorry. He didn't even blink. Instead, he shrugged, pressed his forehead on hers, so they seemed extremely close while he said, the law there is such that if we divorce, then we forfeit our rights as princes, which means whoever is plotting against us and killed our parents will likely leave us alone. Different worlds. No one was out to kill her because of her parents or heritage. No one was going to throw her in jail for crimes she hadn't committed. Her heart constricted in her chest, and she nodded that she'd heard. She sat back but kept her voice low. I didn't know. I get it now. So your brother is protecting the woman he loves. Jordan stared at her blankly, like he never once considered that. He's protecting himself. Aiden married Sienna for the same reasons I'm marrying you, though remarrying her means they intend to stay together. Your inheritance. Though she knew the answer, Jordan squeezed her hand and sat straighter. Yes, money means I can afford security and start my business as soon as possible. Security would be important, but if his brother could afford this wedding, the inheritance must be much bigger than her own paycheck. A waitress brought them salads and offered wine. Jordan motioned for their glasses to be filled, and she picked up the salad fork, though she wasn't hungry. Once the waitress left, she asked quietly, why did your parents put that stipulation in their will about love? Jordan sipped his wine like he was taste testing it. He nodded, put it down, and then looked at his salad. Our mother would have picked our future wives if she had lived. She realized after she broke up Aiden and Sienna that she'd almost ruined my brother's happiness. Our mother never really had the opportunity to fix what she'd done to Aiden. I think she put that in her will, so we all eventually married happily. But she's not alive to interfere anymore. He glanced over her shoulder and stiffened while holding her hand. Jessica's coming. She turned, her heart racing. Hello, Jessica. The beautiful blonde goddess who definitely fit into this world crossed her arms and stared down her perfect nose. Jordan, who's your date? Martha. Jordan wrapped his arm around the back of her chair, his fingers at her nape. Where's yours, Jessica? His tone sounded slightly jealous, at least to her. Jordan had asked Jessica to marry him. His brother Aiden had asked the woman he loved. Perhaps Jordan loved Jessica. Martha ignored the pins and needles sensation in her body. There was no reason to be jealous. Jordan was a temporary husband, not the long-term love of her life. Jessica dropped her arms to her side. I was thinking about your offer and my reaction. I think I was wrong. What offer? Martha asked, though she knew exactly what Jessica meant. She stilled and prayed her job wasn't over already. Jordan squeezed her shoulder. Was that to comfort her? Her skin was so jumpy she wasn't sure, but then Jordan said, "Jessica, it's off the table now." Okay, she could breathe, at least a little. Jessica glared at her and raised her eyebrow haughtily. "Because you're going to marry your date?" Martha was not easily intimidated, and the last thing she or Jordan needed was someone who didn't believe them. So, she held up her hand to introduce herself. "Jessica, hi. I'm Martha. We go to school together, and you're in my childhood adolescence class. I've never..." Jessica didn't shake, and her voice trailed off. She gazed closer, and at the last second, her eyes widened. "Wait, do you usually wear those thick glasses and sit at the front?" She nodded, as there was no way to hide that she usually wore glasses for her morning class, as she pointed to her eyes. "Tonight, it's the contacts." Jessica's nose lifted as her lips thinned. "How in the world did you come here with Jordan?" Martha glanced at him and vaguely remembered the fast story they'd come up with. Then she smiled at Jessica and hoped her voice didn't betray how her pulse raced. Lying wasn't her specialty, but she said as she'd been coached, "He asked me on a date after we met on the beach." Jordan massaged her back and shoulder as he told Jessica, "Yes, Martha here is one of the prettiest women I've met in a long time." He placed a brief kiss her wrist, and a sudden shock electrified her. Wow. Desire curled in her belly, but wanting him was a bad idea. Jessica took a step back, but her gaze seemed filled with disgust. "Guess I was right the first time then. Good luck with Jordan. He's great in bed, but he's not dependable. Marrying him will be a mistake." Bed? He'd had sex with Jessica? Had it been recent? Did he still want her? Martha's mind raced with a million questions. She turned and faced Jordan, whose lips thinned as he eyed Jessica. The only quip she could manage was, "I have no expectations from Jordan. Except perhaps his money and good looks," Jessica drawled. Drat. Jessica had been ready to leave, but now Martha had turned this into some verbal showdown. She hugged Jordan closer to her as she said, "I totally see now why he asked me to be his date." Jessica turned toward her and sighed again. And why is that? Comebacks were never her thing. She always thought of witty replies days too late. He needed someone to be straight with him and keep it real. "Bye, Jessica," Jordan said. Jessica shook her head but stormed off. Martha intended to fire off her questions until she was satisfied. She started with, "What happened?" He stood and gently tugged on her arm so she would follow him. "Nothing important. Let's just dance." When was the last time Jordan and Jessica had sex? The question burned in her mind as Jordan wrapped his arms around her and swayed to the music. He clearly knew how to dance, and she followed his lead. As he turned her, she saw the glare the blonde woman shot in her direction. Martha glanced away fast and smelled the pine-scented cologne that Jordan wore as she buried her face closer to his neck. "Jessica looks like she wants to kill us." His arms tightened around her. "Jessica's not a nice person. I'm lucky she said no the other night and that you showed up at my door." Every part of her screamed to ask him when he'd been intimate with Jessica and for how long. Her insides trembled. How long were you two together? The question sounded so timid compared to the sensual image of Jordan and Jessica that played in her mind of the two of them in some movie sex scene with Jessica draped in his sheets. Martha could feel Jordan staring down at her, so she dared a glance up. "In high school, we briefly had sex a few times, and I took her to the prom, but it was never serious." 4 years was a long time ago. She took a deep breath. Jessica had been trying to ruin their night, obviously. Jordan spun her around. When she returned to his arms, he said, "She's not honest like you. It's actually one of your most alluring assets, Martha." Honest? Well, that she was, for the most part. Thank you for the compliment. The world around them faded into darkness. Being in his arms felt different than anything else she'd ever experienced. She sighed and said, "Now, if you want people to believe we're an item, it's time to kiss me." A moment later, his lips met hers and it felt like the heavens themselves opened. Her arms tightened around his neck and she wished this kiss might never end. Chapter 5. Jordan Bentley glanced at the woman in the passenger seat who snored into his leather seats. Martha was everything he'd never wanted and the only woman who interested him these days. She was refreshing and unpredictable. He hit the brakes as the person in the car in front of him stopped suddenly. His Mazzanti Avantra Millicavalli jerked, and he glanced at Martha, who remained asleep. The car in front of him moved forward, and Jordan pulled into his building. The elevator made no noise as it took them to the 45th floor. As the elevator slid to a stop, he unlocked the car doors. Still Martha slept. He got out and opened her door, unbuckled her seatbelt, and slipped his hands under her knee and shoulders. She moaned, and her eyes fluttered, so he said, "Don't wake up." "I can walk myself," she mumbled while he scooped her up. Honestly, she didn't wait all that much. He hugged her to his waist and breathed in the rose smell of her perfume. "You can, but for tonight, let me put you in bed and leave you alone to your sweet dreams." Her eyes closed, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "I've never actually liked champagne before tonight, clearly." Martha's fresh outlook on everything normal in his world hit chinks in his armor that he didn't know he had. He opened his condo door and said, "Don't worry about anything." He made his way through his apartment and kept the lights off. The thought to make her more comfortable out of that dress crossed his mind. But the last thing he'd do was upset Martha now. He made it to her room and slipped open the door. She hadn't really unpacked anything, but he placed her gingerly on the bed and stared down at her. Her kisses were a fuel that fired up his soul. He hadn't thought about actually liking a girl he'd taken to bed in a long time, but Martha was strangely sweet in her honesty. He saw her strappy, high-heeled shoes and unbuckled them. As he took the first one off, she moaned, but didn't wake. He removed the other and glanced down at her. Again, the thought of stripping off her clothes crossed his mind. The beaded dress wasn't comfortable, but there was no way she'd forgive him if he peeled that off, and he'd definitely peek at her body if he tried. He backed out of the bedroom and closed the door. The sun shone through his window, so he opened the blinds and headed through the house in his sleep pants and no shirt. He wore the pants just in case he'd run into Martha, who'd featured heavily in last night's dreams. She'd never approve of him stripping her naked while she slept, but the what-if scenario replayed over and over in his head. He ticked off the breakfast menu left near the coffee machine and ensured Martha had enough food to get over any hangover, and then headed to the shower. A few minutes later, he returned to the dining area where the food now waited, his staff ever efficient. He sat down and drank his coffee, but halfway through he heard Martha call from the hallway. "Jordan? Martha." He stood, his hand pressing against the glass table as he pushed out the upholstered chair. She showed up in the kitchen in a white nightgown that made her seem angelic, though her hair looked like it had barely survived a tornado. Despite that, she lit something inside of him, and an inkling of desire crept through him. He ignored his reaction and motioned with his hand for her to join him. "Good morning. Breakfast is waiting." Martha shuffled over to the seat, placed her cell phone on the table beside her, and yawned as she plopped down. She massaged her forehead. "I'm not feeling my best." He pushed the eggs, hash browns, bacon, and toast at her. "Eat. This will help." "Thanks." She poured herself a cup of coffee from the silver carafe on the table. They both ate in silence. Her face turned a more normal color as she finished her toast. But he didn't speak until they were done with their coffee. "When you're feeling better, we need to quickly plan our courthouse wedding. My brother, his wife, and my sister can all do Monday morning." She took a deep breath like she needed to think. "I don't want to invite my mother. Do I have to?" This needed to look real, but if she didn't want her mother there, he'd not force the issue. Instead, he poured them both another cup of coffee and said, "No, but in case the lawyers ask, can we say your mother didn't approve?" She shrugged. "I guess. Perfect." He added milk to her mug just as she'd taken it earlier, and handed her the drink. "So today is your last day as a single woman. Do you want to say in the white dress you'll wear?" She sipped her coffee with a happy laugh. "I've been making yours for years. This role reversal is nice." He vaguely remembered her green apron and messy bun. She put her cup down and said, "I'm sure whatever you have delivered will be great. I'd rather we spend today hanging out a little." She scratched at her skin like she had an itch. "I'd like to know some quirks about you for our temporary marriage. Then let's go to the beach." He pointed toward the sun and the big window across from them with a view to the water. Martha patted her stomach and stood. "I just ate all this greasy food. I won't look my best at the beach." She picked up the plates, but he stopped her and put them back on the table. "The maid will get that." Then he let her go but used his thumb to point to the couch. Grabbing her phone, she followed his direction. "I thought you didn't care about looks." She hugged her waist but slipped into the seat on the couch, leaving her phone on the side table. "I never said that. It's implied in your character," he said. "You're not afraid to be seen without makeup, though I haven't seen those glasses yet." "I put my contacts on despite my headache," she admitted. Her phone rang. She didn't reach for it. "You're not going to get that?" "Doesn't matter." She kept her hands on her lap. "Who's calling?" He grabbed it first to see her caller ID. His heart skipped, but he pretended not to care as he handed it to her and said, "Ah, Ricky. Was he worried about your honor?" She turned off the ringer and let the call go to voicemail as she shrugged. "He's worried about getting my notes from biology." He had no right to be jealous. He ignored the strange sensation in his gut. "You take bio?" She saw her hair in the mirror across from her and immediately started trying to straighten it. "Yeah, that was a mistake. I hate the class." He held his chuckle in because the last girl he'd ever seen with messy hair was his sister back when they all lived with his parents. While his sister looked awful, Martha was rather cute with her curls every which way. He pressed his hands together and used his fist as a baseball like he was playing catch with himself. "I am taking the history of science to get out of a science prerequisite." Her nose wrinkled as she let out a small laugh. "That class sounds worse than bio." Martha had no clue about what he really wanted out of life. He shared, "I intend to run a business that hires a lot of scientists, but I don't need to torture myself with pointless classes." Her eyes narrowed like he'd said something foreign. What sort of business? Fair. At least the sunlight in the room wasn't bothering her, so he could mention the beach again soon. The ocean soothed him. Alternative energy. Though my inheritance is entirely based on non-renewable energy, the future will be here soon. Once I have my own money, I can invest in my business and hopefully leave a better name for the Bentley family oil money that's been all over the news. "I see." She massaged her neck while she stared at him in an appraising way. "Your concern for the future is very noble. It makes you sweeter than you seemed." Honesty was rare. No one else called him out, though she was wrong. Sweet wasn't in his character. He had a very detailed business plan that would potentially make him even more money, though that was boring. "Nothing I can implement until we marry." "What about you? What's your future?" A small sigh escaped her. "I need to go to grad school to be a psychologist, and that costs money." Her phone beeped. Ricky must have left her a voicemail. Jordan said, "One day you'll be a force to be reckoned with." She let her neck go and blinked like she didn't understand before she asked, "What do you mean?" The money he'd pay her for her time as his wife would change her life, and she didn't seem to get that. He scooted closer and kissed the back of her hand. "With 100 million in your account and your degrees, you'll be able to do anything you ever wanted." "Are you sure you want psychology?" "Not everything." She folded her hand so their fingers intertwined. Now he made the job sound predatory, and immediately she trembled, and his entire body stiffened. "And yes, I'm sure I want to help people free their minds of the clutter that doesn't matter at the end of the day. Counselors helped me out, and I want to give back." That sounds more noble than energy. Alternative energy that could save the world. You want to save the world. I can handle helping at most one at a time. Interesting. I want to ensure people can breathe clean air that's not warming the atmosphere to a boiling point. So I guess we both want to help others, making us alike. I guess, though you scare me sometimes. Scare you? He refused to acknowledge how much he ached to kiss her again and instead narrowed his eyes. How? I haven't meant to do that to you. What do you mean? She bit her lower lip, clearly not wanting to talk about what was bothering her. He held her hand without saying anything, but she looked at his lips and slowly took her hand away. I'm still a virgin, and it's going to be strange explaining that to a guy after telling him that I was married and divorced. This made no sense. Martha was gorgeous, and her happiness was magnetic when she smiled. How are you a virgin? I'm picky. She scooted back and held one of her wrists before her like a shield. I don't want to be like my mother or her friends. She let out a small laugh and shook her head. I'd like to, be in love. And not the kind where the guy pays for my stuff and I'm accepting because I'm bored with my current life, but like actual real love. I'd like to believe the stories. There wasn't anything wrong with wanting to be in love. While he wasn't sure the emotion was for him, His grandparents had claimed to be in love, and he'd never argued. He didn't want to scare her off. "So you're a romantic?" Martha looked at the bright blue day outside. "I'm hoping for more than what I see. In psychological terms, I'd say I use sublimation, pour my sexual desires into study while I deal with my issues of aporia." She made 0 sense. He'd Google aporia later, but for now he said, "I don't know what that means." Suddenly anxious, she stood, not looking at him as she paced the living room. "It means I substitute my sexual desires and avoid the truth about love. How could it be real?" Doubt, now that he understood. His brother claimed to be in love, and that worked for him. But for Jordan, he wasn't sure if love was possible in his life, even if Martha stared at him with those wide-open, earnest expressions she made. Her slightly pink lips were soft and kissable. He rose as well, standing so close to her that his body tensed with desire. "If you want to experience sex, though, we can do that." She jumped back and shook her head furiously. "No, it wasn't an invitation. Let's get ready for the beach." "Good," he agreed. If he went outside and hopped into the ocean enough, hopefully he could work off his lust with a swim. She turned to leave, but a sense of loss filled him fast. "Martha, hold up." She turned back, and this time he didn't stop himself. He closed the gap between them and claimed her lips in a kiss. Steam heat grew inside him. Right now, he wanted nothing else than to claim her as his own, but he tugged his lips off her. If she asked why he'd done that, he had no answer. She hugged her waist and lowered her gaze. "Why did you do that?" The one question he needed to avoid. Her honesty, happiness, and presence in his life had somehow changed him in less than 2 days, but he couldn't say that. Instead, he went with base desire. "I wanted to." Oh. She walked toward her room, but in the hall, she turned back and looked at him, hair awry around her face. "I don't want to burn, so I'll need your help with sunblock." Always task-oriented, I see. He headed to his room to change into his swim trunks. The beach with Martha might be the best place to seduce her into coming back upstairs, or the worst torture of his life because he'd denied himself. He wasn't sure how the day would play out, but the one bright spot was that Martha wasn't going anywhere. She lived with him for the next month or 2. He had time. Being with Martha was better than his life a few days ago, the same old routine that faded away. And maybe, just maybe, he'd find out what being with a good girl who also fascinated him might be like. Right now, she was like a fine wine that he hadn't known existed, and he ached to taste all of her. Chapter 6. Martha's body tingled and adrenaline rushed in her veins. She was the only person on this beach in a one-piece. Everyone else in the area wore 2 pieces, and more than a few had their tops off, letting the sun shine on parts of their bodies that Martha always covered up. She stayed next to Jordan, and that didn't help the jitters. Why had she shared with him her V-card status? It wasn't like it had to be part of the conversation. Her heart sped up again despite how he'd offered to end her virginity. If he'd used flowery words, maybe she'd have said yes right then, but now she'd never tell him that. She'd already told him too much. He found them a less crowded spot on the beach, and they both laid their towels down. Jordan then placed a small sun umbrella in the sand behind them, and she felt a smidgen of shade. She moved her towel closer to his and thankfully had cover for her face. She opened her backpack and pulled out the sunscreen and her biology textbook. He blinked and picked up her bio book as he asked, "You actually think you can study this morning?" Like most of the people she'd ever met, he probably loved just laughing and sitting on the sand, soaking up the sun. She'd gone to more than a few beach parties in her life, but honestly, the hassle of packing and then getting the sand off, everywhere, had always been a reason she dreaded them. The beach wasn't a blast for her, so she shrugged. "I can try. It's better than just suntanning. I get so bored just sitting with my eyes closed." He dropped cross-legged on her towel and looked into her eyes despite the sun being on his face. It's relaxing to listen to the waves and do nothing. Her heart shifted in a new way. She'd never been so close to temptation, and her mouth watered for something much more important than water. She turned away. "I'm not good at relaxing, to be truthful." Martha lifted her chin and gazed back at him. "I always have things to do." He took both of her hands and closed his eyes like he was some Zen Buddhist monk. A busy mind doesn't always focus. Jordan was the epitome of the ultimate fantasy man any girl would want in her bed. With his eyes closed, something inside her heart pinged and she wished, somehow, he'd kiss her again. "What are you talking about?" He pushed the bio book away and gently shook her hands like he wanted her to relax as he instructed. "Shut your eyes." "Right. Okay." She could try. She closed her eyes and counted to 5 in her head, which only made her insides tremble more. So she said, "This is silly." "Shh." He peeked at her, and she got a glimpse of his brown eyes. He closed them again, holding both of her hands and said, "Trust me, close your eyes." Again, she did as he asked and tried to ignore the growing heat in her heart that ached for more than his touch. "Just listen to the waves and let the sound of the beach be all you think about." His voice was so calm and deep, the exact opposite of how explosive she was inside. She pulled her hands back. "I can't." "Why not?" He opened his perfectly chocolate and brimming with sin eyes. "Because you were touching me." She hadn't intended to say that, and she immediately covered her lips and felt heat in her face. He reached for her hand, doing the exact opposite of his words. "I can stop touching you." This time she tugged him and he came forward, where their bodies touched, thigh to thigh. Her heart beat faster as she said, "Don't, I want you." He traced the side of her face, pushing her hair behind her ears. "I don't want to hurt you." Telling him she was a virgin shouldn't stop their being together. She took his other hand, locking her thighs around him as she said, "Don't try to protect me. I know what I want and make my own decisions in life." Then his lips met hers, and she leaned back, pulling him on top of her. This was paradise and perfect. She didn't care that she rolled into the sand as her body ached for far more than just kisses. Near his condo, the beach was nearly empty. His skin touching her chest she normally hid from view, with only her bathing suit as a barrier sent her temperature skyrocketing. A shadow loomed over them, and Jordan stopped kissing her. He rolled off, and it took a second for her body and her eyes to adjust to the harsh sun. When she finally saw who was there, she instantly froze. Ricky glared at her like she was the iceberg that sank the Titanic and said, "Martha, I thought you'd be different." "Ricky?" She questioned his name, though she knew it was him. She honestly had no clue what to say. Jordan stood fast. "The lady chooses who she wants." "That's right," Martha echoed the sentiment. It was her choice, and Jordan was everything she ever wanted. She rose fluidly between the men but stayed next to Jordan. "Ricky, you and I were just friends." Ricky shook his head in disapproval. "If you need me to pick up the pieces, Martha, I'll be there for you when this one breaks your heart." Without another word, he stormed down the beach toward the university just miles away. Neither one of them said anything, though they both sat back down on the towel. Once Ricky was clearly out of sight, Jordan swiveled toward her and said, "He's gone. And he's right that you have choices, Martha. You don't have to do anything." She absolutely did. Her body craved him. Without thinking, she scooted herself on Jordan's lap and claimed his lips in a kiss. Jordan's erection between her thighs made her ache to know far more than maybe. Between kisses, she whispered, "Let's go upstairs." Jordan packed their stuff fast, and she jammed her book into her backpack, though he refused to let her carry it back to the condo. He swung it over his shoulder and she didn't object. She slipped on her flip-flops and they stayed arm in arm while they walked the few feet to his building. Once inside the white lobby, beneath the crystal chandelier 3 floors up that shone down on them, Jordan stopped in his tracks and stared ahead. She followed his gaze while he said, "Aiden, Sienna, we weren't expecting you." His brother and his new wife showed up? Now? Weren't they on their honeymoon? Okay, they were leaving after the wedding tomorrow, but she stopped her racing mind. Aiden and Sienna looked at Jordan and then Martha. His brother said, "We'd like to talk to you both before you get married tomorrow." Jordan briefly met her gaze and she nodded before he said, "Come upstairs with us." "Sure." Martha took the towel out of her bag he carried and wrapped it around her like a sarong as they rode the east elevator up. No one said anything, and they listened to the classical jazz until the elevator stopped. She wasn't even sure what to say, so she kept her lips sealed. Hopefully his brother didn't talk Jordan out of their plan. Sure, she needed the money, but she'd never met a man she'd wanted to give her virginity to like Jordan. He made her feel sexy when no one had ever really noticed her before, and she didn't want today to end. Once they made it to the door, Jordan rubbed her back. "Martha, "Can you get the order slips from the kitchen counter drawer and order 4 lattes, 1 caramel, 2 mochas, and whatever you want. Then put the slip on the counter next to the sink." His home worked like a restaurant of sorts, where he just wrote down his order. She didn't ask, but instantly nodded and said, "Got it." Jordan led his brother to the living area, not caring at all that he was in his bathing suit with no shirt on or that they might have tracked sand inside his perfectly clean condo. Once they were settled, he asked, "Aiden, what do you want to talk about?" "Right." She found the pad and a pen beside it and wrote down the order and added a 3rd mocha for herself. His brother, the more clean-cut version of Jordan, said, "We want to ensure you're not making a huge mistake. We'll pay for security and anything you might need. You don't need to feel pressured to make the wrong choices." She put everything away and left the order on the counter as she adjusted her towel and headed into the living room. Jordan scooted over, indicating she should join him, so she took the seat beside him as he said, "It's okay. I'd prefer to be in charge of my own inheritance." Aiden leaned forward. "Marriage can be a big deal." Jordan gently tapped her knee. "Martha and I are prepared." Now that was quite a statement. Honestly, she wasn't sure she was prepared, but she smiled and pretended. She could stick to the deal they'd made. Sienna, with her cheeks so white and pure that Martha assumed she never saw the sun, tugged her husband's arm and he sat back while she smiled and said, "At least you didn't ask Jessica to marry you. That would have been a disaster." "Why?" Jordan didn't move. The blonde, blue-eyed Jessica would make him look good. Martha wondered if Jordan still carried a torch for the beautiful model in his heart, but didn't dare ask. Sienna's white face bloomed red fast when she made a tsk sound. "She has a mean streak. I heard her yesterday at the reception." Jordan pressed his hand on her knee again, though he said to his new sister-in-law, "I'm surprised to hear that from you, Sienna." The staff magically appeared with 4 paper coffee cups. Martha jumped out of her seat and headed to the kitchen, but she wasn't fast enough to meet the staff. Did they have a secret door? She brought the coffees to the living room and handed them out as Sienna said to Jordan, "I'm your sister now." Sienna whispered, "Thank you," for the coffee, and then continued, "Jessica was a nightmare to be around, always acting superior and mighty and never nice to anyone. I don't know Martha, but she seems a step up." So the iciness Martha felt near Jessica wasn't just jealousy on her end, but because Jessica was a diva. Jordan sighed like he accepted what Sienna said. "That's how we both felt about Arwa's boyfriend, Brett." Aiden nodded, so neither man must have liked their sister's boyfriend. But then what brother did? And to be fair, she'd never really met a Brett, but the name sounded super entitled. Martha kept her mouth closed, as that was an assumption based on social media and television shows. She needed to analyze her thoughts before voicing an opinion. Aiden then said, "So you and Martha are certain about your plans?" "We are." Jordan shifted so there was room beside him and she sat back down. Sienna held up her cup of coffee. "These are lovely, Martha. Thank you." "Thanks?" She hadn't been the barista or even had the idea to order drinks. She'd simply served the cups, so she pushed her hair behind her ears and said, "I didn't do anything. I'm still in shock that the staff works based on a notepad. I'm so confused." Sienna glanced at her, and instantly Martha wondered if she'd revealed something she shouldn't have. "If we ever intend to host a party or need to order ahead of time, there is a computer program I'll show you later," Jordan said. Sienna sipped her latte. "Martha, where are you from?" "Miami, same as you." She hoped her face wasn't bright red, but not the fancy neighborhoods the Bentleys clearly lived in, as their worlds were far apart. She kept her lips sealed shut. Lying wasn't good. Sienna took another sip, watching Martha over the rim. "Where did you live? What part?" Martha asked as her heart raced and she wished, somehow, she could avoid this line of questioning. Sienna stared at her like she expected an answer. Martha's lips twisted as she tried to find a way to end this line of inquiry. The last thing she wanted was questions about her life, as she definitely wasn't related to royalty. "I grew up in Kendall. That's close to Pinecrest," Sienna told her husband. Martha gulped her mocha. "Kind of," Aiden asked. "And what do your parents do?" Sienna paled as if embarrassed, but then she explained, "Just to add in fast so my husband doesn't seem too harsh. My mother is a school secretary, and my dad left when I was little." "I didn't mean to sound like a drill sergeant," Martha calmed down. She'd been wrong to assume Sienna was royalty too. There was nothing wrong with talking about her family then. Martha let out a sigh and said, "My dad has a different family now, and I have 2 half-sisters I don't really know. My mom is a nurse." Sienna elbowed her husband. "That's fine, right, boys?" At least they hadn't said Martha was out of his league or anything. In fact, his sister-in-law at the end of the conversation had sounded nice. Aiden hopped out of his seat. "Yes, of course. We'll get out of your hair now." Sienna rose and hugged her. The 4 of them walked to the door and everyone said goodbye, with hugs and pats on the back. Once they'd closed the door and his brother and sister-in-law were gone, Jordan kept his hands to his sides rather than on her. "Guess we can order lunch now and decide what we want to do for this afternoon." Martha wanted the mood from the beach back, though that might not be the best idea. For now, she backed up toward her bedroom and bathroom. "Okay, sounds good. Order whatever you're eating for me too. I'll meet you out here in a few minutes. I want to wash the sand out of my hair at least, so I'll be right back." As she turned to go, Jordan traced her back and stopped on her lower spine. She turned, and he captured her lips in his. Desire rose faster than a hurricane. She kissed him back and instantly felt hot. Wow. As he let her go, he winked at her and said, "Sounds good." Then he walked away. Her fingers brushed against her lips as she headed toward the bathroom to clean up and change. She hadn't wanted that kiss to end, but when she returned, she was ready to end her virginity, once and for all. Chapter 7. Martha went through her closet and wondered what to wear. Tonight might change her, and she needed to show she wanted to give herself to Jordan. She wanted Jordan to notice her. She wanted his touch again, but she had 0 sexy come-hither secret clothes meant for sex, and the personal shopper who had filled her shelves and hangers hadn't included anything either. She bit her lip and brought out a sundress, but then put it back. It was best to pretend to be comfortable near Jordan. She picked out pajama bottoms and a wife-beater type t-shirt that she'd worn to bed countless times. At the last second, she decided on a black bra beneath the tank top and headed back out to the living area. Plates with covers and dark beers were on the table next to his white couch. Jordan's hair was still damp from his shower as he sat in the middle, also in dark blue lounge pants and a white t-shirt. He scooted over and said, "You're back. Good. There was some wedding issue for tomorrow. Business then." She sank down and looked at his laptop screen, tucking her hair behind her ear. "What's going on?" "We need to pass a test." He pivoted the screen closer to her. "A test?" The URL of the page read premarital counseling. He nodded. "It's online. I have lunch, but let's do this first." "Okay. What is this for?" Her pulse quickened. He didn't want forever with her, so there was no need for long-term counseling. He pressed his hand on her knee as if to stop her shaking. Florida law has a waiting period. However, if we take this online class, we can file for the wedding Monday morning. Ah. She relaxed and sat cross-legged while she picked up the laptop. "Okay, so let me read and see what's going on with the questions. Get started." He stepped over to the side table, removing the covers to show the food he'd ordered. "I'll bring our burgers over." Her stomach grumbled happily, but she returned her attention to the laptop as he sat beside her, putting the plates on the glass coffee table in front of them. "Burgers? I thought your type only ate escargot and drank champagne." He walked past her and her attention went to his sexy backside, but when he turned toward her again with the drinks, she avoided his gaze. "And you're a beer and burger type?" "Well, actually, yeah." She took the glass from him and sipped the dark beer. Her nose wrinkled as she never drank really, but she put the glass down without complaint. Jordan drank deeply and centered the glass on a coaster. "We can have both in our lives, and escargot isn't exactly my favorite, but I can stomach almost any food." "Right." She needed to stop judging him. The beer didn't have a bad aftertaste, and it was growing on her. She focused on the computer. "These questions are pretty easy. It's all about healthy communication. Want to talk about these questions, or should I just answer for us?" He took out a knife and cut her hamburger in half and then cut his own. "Answer and give me the highlights while we eat." Most of the guys she'd known used both hands to hold a hamburger, and no one cut it, never mind for her. She held that thought. "Sounds good." This is basically saying in finances and in big decisions, a healthy married couple talks and listens to each other. She typed in a few answers that came back correct as he said, "That sounds logical." Martha quickly finished the section. It does, but emotion doesn't always follow logic. Oftentimes, how we grew up create programmed reactions in us. She typed a few more answers and grinned when she saw that they'd passed. He asked, "You learned this in psychology class?" "Yeah." She showed him the laptop screen with pride. He created a PDF of the certificate and emailed it to someone from Holland and Knight as the URL read, which was the biggest law firm in Miami. "So, any emotional triggers you have I should know about?" A shiver raced through her which made her wiggle because the other half of her body was still so hot for him. Her mind raced with the obvious answer. Probably the rich dad, poor dad mentality. His gaze sharpened and his body tensed like she'd attack him just because he'd been born with money while she hadn't. "What's that?" She massaged the back of her head and reached for her food, picking up the plate and leaving it in her lap. "You grew up knowing how to save and you make decisions based on your long-term future. I grew up wondering what I'd eat that night because we couldn't always afford the best and the dollar store sells meals." His eyes widened and he stopped eating. Once he finished his bite and wiped his mouth with a cloth napkin, he asked, "The dollar store sells food?" "Yeah, though I don't recommend it." She bit into her burger. "This is delicious." They finished their meals in silence, and she hoped that she hadn't been too honest for him. He brought their empty plates to the kitchen. She stayed in her seat with her practically full beer and sipped a little more. When he returned, he asked, "Are you afraid you'll spend the 100 million when you earn it?" She put her tall glass on the table again, letting her knee press against his thigh. "Actually, the thought crossed my mind, especially if I tell people, they will want a piece of the pie." Her mother came to mind. Not that she wouldn't want to help, but where did you begin or end? He settled his beer glass beside hers and then sat cross-legged, like her, facing her. "Ah, well, if you want, I can set you up with my accountant. He can recommend ways to invest and show you how to handle the money while affording what you need." Her shoulders relaxed. Jordan seemed genuine, and logically he knew more about saving actual money than she'd ever done in practice. She leaned back on the couch. "Okay, I'd like to talk to him, thanks." He followed her actions, relaxing, and then nudged her arm. "Any other triggers? I'd like to avoid the harpy version of Martha." "Harpy?" She could tell he was teasing, and she smiled, not moving her arm away from him. His brown eyes had a gleam in them that made her heart thump as he simply said, "Yeah." She elbowed him gently and laughed. "I guess she might come out if you start acting all egotistical and superior too much." He grabbed her arm to stop her elbow, but didn't let go as he asked, "Too much?" She wrestled to get her arm back but wiggled herself closer to him. "Well, you are slightly arrogant, so it's possible." He stilled, let her go, and said, "I see. Well, I'll try to keep that in check then." Drat, he'd gotten serious and here she was, half on his lap. If she scooted back, she'd be just as awkward if she stayed. This wasn't good. She wiggled backward. "What about you? Any emotional triggers?" He didn't move to stop her, but leaned forward immediately, reaching for his beer. "My therapist would probably say I'm emotionally disconnected from my former likes since my parents died." He swallowed and put the glass down. Her heart twisted as she tried to think about how she'd handle his trauma. Honestly, she couldn't. She'd never known her father to really feel anything, and her mother never left her alone. Jordan's pain wasn't anything she could imagine, so she hugged his side and quietly said, "I'm sorry. If I can help?" He massaged her knee, then her thigh. "You being here is already good. I like seeing you happy." If she could melt from a simple touch, she'd be a puddle of water already. Steam rose from her skin as she asked, "Why?" He kept his hand on her thigh like he waited for permission to go farther. "I'd guess because I can see you're a good girl." She reached out and brushed his shoulder. She wanted to pull him closer but didn't dare. She didn't know what to do. And that matters because... His fingers traced her leg and she tingled, wishing he'd be able to touch her bare skin. Was there a way to ditch the pants? "The only other good girl I know is my sister." Wait, this wasn't good. She opened her eyes wide. So you see me like your sister? No. He tugged her leg and she let it go over his lap as he said, absolutely not. Good, you are very sexy. No one had ever made her feel this wanted, ever. She wanted to strip his clothes off and knew she must be bright red from these thoughts. Instead, she didn't move but glanced down at his chest. You think I'm sexy? Definitely. He leaned closer to her. Sexy, honest, and sweet. You're sweet, Jordan. She closed her eyes and puckered her lips. A fraction of an inch from her face, she could feel his breath on her skin and how her body already ached for him. No, I'm not sweet, but I will be your husband. Who better than that to show you pleasure? The word husband sent a shockwave through her that quickly charged as his lips met hers. No one knew how to kiss better than him. She hadn't known it was possible to have this pulse-pounding desire ebb through her entire body. As he let go of her, she was breathless and needy. It took her a second, and then she was able to meet his serious brown-eyed gaze. She smiled and said, "That sounds better than I thought it would." His fingers trailed the elastic of her pajama pants, but he didn't do anything else. Let me know if you don't want to do this. She needed him. Now. She leaned up to kiss him. Absolutely not. Okay. He backed off fast. Wait, had she said the wrong thing? She cupped his face, kissed his nose, and said, I meant I want you. I want this. He claimed her lips in another soul-searching kiss. Chapter 8. Sunlight brushed Martha's cheek while she slept on soft sheets and curled away from the heat, her eyes closed. Jordan's warm body that had been beside her was gone, but then the weight of the mattress shifted and she felt his hands on her side as he pulled at her sheets. She opened her eyes. Sleep a little longer, he said. Then why did he open the blinds to let her know it was day? She sat up to ask, but then she heard women outside the bedroom door. She straightened out a few of the knots in her hair and yawned. Do I hear voices in our apartment? He nodded and gave her an innocent smile, when the last word she'd ever used to describe Jordan was innocent, especially after last night. Hair, makeup, and your dress are all here. We have an appointment for this morning at the courthouse. Oh wow, the wedding. Wait, not the wedding, her wedding. This might be her only one, ever, because she was pretty certain there was no such thing as love that lasted forever. She ignored the lovely aches in her body from last night and the heat that rose from being near Jordan. I never sleep this long. You had a lot of exercise last night. He sat on the bed and kissed her, sending a tingling reminder of how awesome last night had been and awareness that she wanted to repeat the performance a few more times. Once he ended the kiss, he caressed her cheek and said, Last night was wonderful. Today, after our marriage, we can skip a few classes and celebrate. Okay, right. How did she keep forgetting the wedding? Her wedding. She took a deep breath and then covered her face with her hand. Wait, isn't it bad luck to see me right now? A low chuckle escaped his lips, and she peeked through her fingers as he said, It's more important to know you're happy. Fair. She pushed the covers down and wrapped her arms around him, kissing him. He didn't move at first, and then he kissed her back. The fire inside her burned for more of Jordan, and they both fell backwards on the bed, as she didn't want to let him go. However, he ended the kiss, straightened his simple blue t-shirt, and winked at her like he was promising so much more as he said, Well, I'll see you soon. Jordan Bentley was everything she'd never wanted and now craved. This wasn't supposed to happen. She watched him leave and hopped out of bed fast. She glanced down at the cream sheets and hugged herself. Yes, last night had been wonderful, but she knew better than to equate sex with love. She'd studied this in countless classes already and watched her mother and friends walk that path. She was here to secure her future, not fall in love. The heat slowly left her body, and she dropped her hands to her sides, but she wanted Jordan in bed again too. There had to be a line or she'd risk a broken heart. As she walked out of the bedroom, she heard the elevator with the car descending. Where was Jordan going? She yawned, walked into her bedroom to brush her teeth, but saw Rossi with a different woman than last time. Instantly, Rossi hugged her and said, Come, sit. We don't have a lot of time and your husband-to-be was super generous. Martha wasn't quite ready. She held up a finger and went to the bathroom to clean up, and glanced at herself in the mirror. Did she look different now? She took extra time washing her hands as an excuse to wait until her busy mind finally quieted. Once ready, she opened the door and headed out. Rossi had arranged all her makeup brushes in preparation. How was Jordan generous? Rossi twirled, picking up a brown jewelry case like they had in jewelry stores. She unlocked it and flipped the lid back as she lifted it to show her. Have you seen the jewels you're to choose from? No. Martha held her breath. Seriously, the sparkles inside the box almost blinded her. Reds, greens, blues, and clear. This was jewelry meant for a museum or some rich woman. Her hand went to her heart as she stared at the sapphires, diamonds, emeralds, rubies, and countless others she didn't even know the names of. Rossi placed the box on the bed so Martha could look closer. We asked. These are from the family collection and his mother's. She clearly had great taste. Martha backed away, her palms raised. I can't wear any of this. Sure you can. Rossi opened the closet behind her, showing 3 dresses all hung on a rack. One was knee-length and soft. One was long but still simple for the courthouse. The third was a dress she'd wear if the wedding was real and in a venue other than the downtown courthouse. I don't know. Martha shook her head. Rossi had no idea the chaos of Martha's thoughts as she said, "Let's just see what looks best with the dress you choose." I said the shopper could pick. Martha returned her attention to the jewelry. There was someone she didn't know with hair and makeup. Martha closed the box and handed it back to Rossi with the key. Rossi took it while she still waved at the dresses. She sent 3 she thought were gorgeous, and it's up to you to choose. Lots of decisions. Martha forced herself to study her choices. All were soft. None were cotton or polyblend, and she'd guessed the short one was silk by texture alone. Overwhelmed, she backed away and headed toward the makeup station. I'm not ready in my head for choices. Rossi stopped at a carafe, poured a cup and handed it to Martha. Coffee? Have some. We'll work and then you choose. 2 hours later, Martha's hair was arranged in another updo, and her makeup was soft and pink and made her look like a heroine in a rom-com movie. She laughed, and then Rossi took out the box and unlocked it again as she held it toward the mirror. Drat. Now Martha had to choose. She rolled her shoulders and tried on the dress she wanted the most. The silk knee-length fit like a glove, and she gave Rossi a thumbs up. Rossi, thank you again. I don't think I could do any of this without your expertise. The hairdresser smiled at the compliment and started to take the jewelry out for Martha to see as she said, Now that your hair is done, let's pick which of these matches your dress. The diamond necklace was made for a ballroom, not the courthouse. She shook her head no and pointed to a small opal. This is just the courthouse. I'm going with this one. Rossi lifted it out of the case, reached out to hand it to her, but then pulled back. Sassy and cute, but the smallest. Are you nervous about wearing these? Her face must be red as she was hot. She bit her lip a little and held her other wrist in her palm as she lowered her gaze. Yeah, these are all expensive. I can't. Rossi put the opals back into the box and then showed her the shiny blue sapphire in the sunshine. Relax, your husband-to-be trusts you, and he'll be there. Look, the blue might be great. You don't have any blue on you, and if you give it back to him, it's technically been borrowed, and from what I understand, this necklace is over 100 years old. Wedding superstition, but why take a chance? Martha nodded and lifted her chin as she said, Then this hits 3 of the 4 lucky things. The dress is new. I'll try the sapphire. Rossi put the jewelry box down, locked it, and then helped her with the clasp of the bracelet that didn't seem to want to work for Martha. Once Rossi fixed it, she adjusted the necklace and stepped back with a nod as Martha hooked the earrings in her ears. Once Martha finished, Rossi said, You look like a princess. Martha would have pushed her hair out of her face from habit, but stopped when she realized she had no hair on her face as the updo was perfect. She kept her head down. The last thing she'd ever be was Jordan's forever. This was all temporary. She shrugged. I'll never really be a princess, but thank you. Rossi's phone rang as Martha checked herself out in the mirror. She really did look great, she thought, and ignored the ping in her heart that hoped Jordan would approve of her. She was definitely never going to be his, so she shouldn't care. Her mind raced so much that her chin trembled like her hand. She glanced away from the mirror before she broke something and shattered the mirror and her hopes. Rossi hung up her phone. "Your limo is here." "Right." Martha hugged her again and said, "Thank you, Rossi." Rossi laughed and hugged her back. "I'm the lucky one, as my job is to make people happy on their wedding day. Now go." In the deluxe ride to the courthouse, Martha repeated that Jordan didn't matter. Not really. He wasn't in love with her or anything. Last night had sent her to the edge of heaven itself, but that wasn't a factor in the hard light of day. The limo stopped, and she stepped out, immediately seeing Sienna waving near a side door. Martha followed her and tried to ignore how her skin continued to jitter. Her heart lifted as she walked into a small garden area near the courthouse and captured the brown-eyed gaze of the most mesmerizing man she'd ever met. As she moved toward him, someone played music. He opened his arms for her, and she took both his hands as she said, "Jordan." The judge didn't look like a judge, but he wore a black shirt and pants, like he was a minister of sorts. Jordan smiled brighter than the tropical sun. "Wow, you are gorgeous." Steam rose through her again. She looked down and shyly said, "You don't have to say that." Jordan squeezed her hands. "Let's do this." She pulled back and held up a finger to indicate to the judge they needed to wait. "Can we talk for 1 minute, alone?" Jordan still held one hand as they walked off to the side. "Sure. What's up, beautiful?" "Martha," she corrected when they were alone. She kept her voice down as the others didn't need to hear her, but she had to know Jordan wasn't falling for her either. He probably wasn't, but they should be on the same page, so she quickly said, "Jordan, I'm super nervous about all of this." He kissed her cheek. "Don't be. We got this." How she wanted to freeze this moment. Her heart beat differently now. She wanted him, and it was more than just last night. She couldn't say that because Jordan had made his job description clear. She held back. "We? That sounds scary. Why would—" He met her gaze and asked, "Are you trying to back out?" Her heart almost stopped. She hadn't expected him to even think that. She shook her head. "No, I just need to know." Her voice trailed off, unsure what to say, which was a first, but her brain stormed to stick to business. "That the deal is still on, and this is all temporary?" His expression darkened, and he crossed his arms with a slow nod. "I'll ensure you get your 100 million when this is over." Her body trembled, and she fumbled with the necklace around her neck. "And I'll give back this necklace today." Jordan's face lightened as he smiled at her and caressed her cheek. "My father would have approved of you." His fingers sent a thrill through her. She didn't dare move, but asked, "What about your mother?" He traced her arm and took her hand. "My mother was more elitist, but we think she changed before she died." Neither of them moved until he gently squeezed her palm. Seriously, Jordan was dreamy. Maybe when all this ended, they could date. Anything was possible. They'd talk about it after the wedding today. She let the thought wash through her and said, "Okay, I'm ready now." They returned to the judge and his brother and sister-in-law who served as witnesses. Jordan whispered to her, "Everything is going to be okay, Martha." "Good." She felt her lips curl into a relieved smile. Now that was what I wanted to hear. The judge raised the book in his hand and asked, "Is everyone ready?" "Yes." Nerves racked through her again, but she gazed into Jordan's mesmerizing eyes and just let the feelings she had rush through her. Jordan was perfect, and even the sun didn't shine nearly as brightly as he did. The next thing she knew, Jordan's lips claimed hers, and she kissed him back. She didn't care that they were out in public. His kiss was now hers, and she wanted him. He ended the kiss, and her heart had a slight pang. Jordan placed his hand on her back and led her to a side table where the marriage license waited for their signatures. "Now let's sign these forms and then get going." "Right." She followed his directions and signed her name. He signed, and they handed it to the minister, who added his own signature. Once he was done, the judge took their paper and the four of them waited. A minute later, he returned with an official typed license with the official state stamp. Jordan clutched the paper like it was the most important thing he'd ever accomplished. As they walked out into the sun and toward their limo, Martha said quietly, "This was a whirlwind. I can't believe we did this, that it is already over." He let her climb into the limo first. Once they were seated and his brother and sister-in-law waved to them before going to their own limo, Jordan said, "Now, we need to drop off a copy of the marriage certificate to my lawyer, and then we're off to have a nice lunch with my brother and his wife. Then we'll go home and relax. Lunch with his family." She could wait a little, and her stomach grumbled. It might be butterflies, though. She wasn't sure entirely what caused her doubts, but she stayed close to him. "Jordan, today was beautiful. Nicer than I expected." He leaned forward past her and picked up the wine and filled 2 glasses. He handed her one and said, "Glad you liked it. I thought the judge, but outside where it was done in a courtyard instead of a random back room, might be an upgrade, so today would feel slightly less awkward. I can't wait to be alone with you again." His fingers brushed against the sapphires around her neck and she held her breath. He looked great in his navy blue Armani suit with a royal blue tie that matched her necklace. They clinked glasses and his outdoorsy cologne wafted toward her. She sipped and let her body relax. Right now, she was exactly where she wanted to be. Nothing else mattered. Chapter 9. Jordan waited for the elevator to open and then unlocked the door to his condo. Martha walked beside him, but his grandfather always said to ensure a happy marriage, then he should carry his bride over the threshold. And the only 2 people he ever knew who were happy and completely in love had been his grandparents. So without explaining, he reached over and scooped Martha into his arms and carried her over the threshold. She didn't object, and he let her down gently on the custom bamboo floor. He smiled at her, drinking in her fresh beauty. "Glad we're finally home." "Me too." She hugged her waist as if nervous, even her cheeks seemed pinched. "We need to talk." Maybe she hadn't liked him carrying her over the threshold. He'd promised this was temporary, so an action like that could be confusing. He braced himself for whatever she might say. She tended to be honest. "About?" She nudged his shoulder to walk with her to the living room. "Sex, and then keeping this temporary. If she didn't want to share a bed, then he'd leave her alone." He shrugged out of his suit jacket and loosened his tie. They'd started as a business arrangement. His body stiffened as he'd hoped to taste more of her again, as Martha was like no one else he'd ever met. He'd respect her wishes, though he refused to sit on the couch she waited on. Instead, he walked to the bar and took out a bottle of wine. "Okay, what's going on?" "I'll wait." She obviously felt that he needed to join her. If she was a different woman, he would assume it was a power play. Not her, though. He filled 2 glasses of red wine and brought the bottle with him. He handed her a glass and set the wine on the glass coffee table in front of them. Once he finished and sat, she said, "I'm worried we're mixing up the deal." "We are." He held his glass between his legs. There was no reason to beat around the bush, so he nodded, held the glass a little tighter and said, "And? Just spit it out. Your frankness and honesty are good traits." Her face went red. She put her wine glass down untouched and started to take out the pins in her hair. "I need to know if last night was just convenient because I was here, or if there is potential for more." After the 30 days, his heart stilled. Right now, he wasn't sure if Martha fit in his life or not. Her hair became softer as she let it down. Sure, she was honest and direct, but his world sometimes required a hard shell, and she lacked the veneer that might protect her from the cruel nature of the vultures he sometimes needed to work with. "But you still want the divorce?" She nodded, finished with the pins and let her hair down, and something in his heart dropped. "Yes." She took his hand. "I don't want some assassin going after you." Other than his brother and sister, no one would care if he actually died. Maybe Martha now cared. Probably not, but she was sweet. She swept her hair behind her ears, though it was curly after being released from the pins. Her vulnerability sent a shockwave through him. His shoulders slumped as he sipped his wine. "I don't want that either, and whatever happens between us," he put the glass down beside her and placed his hands on her knees. "I like you. You're more real to me than anyone else." Her cheeks grew redder, but she tightened her body as she asked, "But?" Neither one of them trusted each other entirely. He caressed her cheek. "There is no but. I like you." A short laugh escaped her as her face brightened. She then leaned into his shoulder and laced her fingers with his. "Good, because I like you too. I was just nervous today." Nervous meant she was conflicted. He ignored that he was too, and instead pressed closer to her as he asked, "I make you nervous?" She flashed him a smile that melted a piece of the shield he'd welded around his heart. In a good way. "Yeah, last night was awesome." This time he bumped her shoulder lightly and traced her thigh. She didn't move her leg at all as he said, "But you were worried in the morning. That's not good." She bit her lower lip and held still like she wanted to say something but didn't. Finally, she let her lip out of its prison, swallowed and said, "I know you slept with Jessica." It had been a long time ago, and honestly, she was a cold fish. He met Martha's gaze and hoped she believed every word as he said, "We had sex. We didn't sleep together. I slept next to you." Her face softened, and the need to kiss her grew as she hugged his sides. "Oh, well, that's good." Her eyes closed, and she lifted her lips invitingly. Martha's sweetness hit him hard, and he quickly took her offer. Her kiss set his heartbeat on overdrive. Her hands on his chest made him hard, fast. He ended the kiss as he needed to be in total control of himself, but he winked at her and asked, "Were you jealous?" "Absolutely." He handed her back her wine glass and he took his. He clinked the glasses together, letting her sip, and then said, "I was concerned you'd choose Ricky over me, to be honest." Her eyes widened and she almost spit out her wine. She didn't, but he'd clearly shocked her. She coughed a little, and once she was fine, she shook her head. "Ricky? Seriously? He's a friend, but that's all there ever was. He walked me to work and walked me home, as a friend." Neither one of them drank another sip, so he took the wine and put it back on the table. She didn't object. Martha had no idea how Ricky felt about her. But that didn't mean she didn't have feelings for the guy, so he pressed, "Yeah, he liked you. If he spent that much time with you, it should have been obvious. I just don't know if you liked him." She ran her hand up and down his back while she hugged him and kissed his neck. "Not like you." "Good." His manhood hardened. Martha's sweetness hit him in the chest, and he needed to have her. "Then let's forget about him and focus on what's next." Her eyebrows arched as she asked, "What is next?" "Tonight it's just you and me." He gently kissed her. She moaned when he let her lips go, but then she hugged him tight. "Yeah? That's your plan?" He didn't move as he needed her invitation to do more, but he held her gaze. "Tomorrow, we don't have to race to a court appointment or have anyone come to the condo so early." She nodded, and, again, he kissed her. She tasted sweeter than chocolate. As the kiss ended, she reached for the clasp to her necklace. "Oh, wait. Here. Please take these jewels now. Later." He lightly brushed her hands down. Her brow wrinkled as she stared at him and said, "But, He interrupted and made his intentions known. "I want to see you naked wearing nothing but this blue gem against your pale skin." She dropped her hands to her sides, seemingly intrigued by the idea, her cheeks pink. "I'm a little nervous, though." Fair. He needed this to go slow, too, and get her to the bedroom to ease his desires. Neither said anything, so he handed her the glass again and watched her take a dainty sip. He said, "Last person I saw wearing it was my grandmother, and she said wearing the sapphires was how she enamored my grandfather." "Enamored?" she repeated as if surprised he'd used the word. "And why would you want me to be naked in your grandma's necklace?" He nodded. "That's the most accurate translation of what she said, and I'm curious if the necklace has some power to create love as she thought." Love? She was about to say something else, but his phone rang. He took it out of his jacket pocket that was on the couch beside him and intended to turn off the ringer. However, he read the caller ID with trepidation. She said, "I thought you said no interruptions the rest of the day." "That was the plan, but it's my lawyer's office." He put the phone to his ear as he answered and told her, "Hold on." She sipped her wine in silence, put the glass down, and waited. He listened in disbelief and ended the call before turning to Martha on the couch. "Someone sent a letter to the estate lawyers that our marriage isn't genuine and not to release my inheritance." She let out a gasp and covered her lips. "So what do we do now?" Someone was out to stop him from getting his inheritance and possibly prevent his business plans, but who? He had enemies, all wealthy people did. But his family was related to royalty. which added danger even though he didn't want the throne. His brother and sister all had the same plans, so they weren't after each other's shares. This had to be someone outside their family. But right now, he had no clue. He met Martha's gaze. "We have to prove our marriage is real. Some PI is already following us around to prove we're pretending." Her hands lowered to her lap, her face frozen before she covered her chest with her palms. "Can the PI get into your apartment and see what we do?" She was fully dressed in a white gown, just as he was. But he motioned toward the window that only showed blue ocean as far as the eye could see. "We're on one of the top floors, and I don't see any drones." Still, she looked at him. "We'll keep the curtains closed." Wow, she'd missed the obvious. He motioned toward the huge window. "We'll have to buy curtains. I never bothered for the living room as I liked the sunshine." "I do too." She picked up her glass and gulped a bit of wine and asked in a fast pace, "But why would anyone? Who would pay for this? Wait, is it someone who wants you dead? Are we both in danger?" A chill raced through him as he supposed those things were possible. He needed to consider how best to soothe her worries while still being honest, as she had been. "I'm not high on the throne list, but maybe." She put the glass down and straightened the soft knee-length gown to ensure she had no wrinkles as she stared at the window. "They murdered your parents. How are you not worried about someone coming after you? I'd be petrified." He massaged her back as he reluctantly pointed out, "You're on their list now too until we divorce." She flinched, but then hugged him and put her wine glass down. "So, let's prove we're happy and in love so we can move on." True. But he still needed to know who was behind the sabotage of his marriage. He put his glass down as he didn't want the wine anymore, and figure out who hired the PI. Martha stared at him like she was analyzing the situation. Then she turned toward him, lifting her knee to her chest and hugged them closer to her. "If not would-be assassins, then probably Jessica. She was very upset at the reception for your brother when she saw us together." Jessica? He shouldn't have asked her to marry him, but he'd wanted his inheritance fast. Focusing on the money gave him sanity after his parents died, and there was no way they'd put that stipulation in the will if they'd suspected their lives were in danger. His pulse remained steady, but he knew Martha was smart. "Why do you say that?" Martha patted his knee now like he was about to be lectured. "Sienna said Jessica hated to be crossed, and she liked you." "Like is too strong an emotion," he said. Jessica liked money, always had. Her protest the other night was probably to finagle more money out of him, but then Martha had knocked on his door. He hadn't thought about Jessica since. "She liked my money and having me on her arm. I was surprised she said no when I asked her in the first place. I'm happy she did." Martha pressed into his side. "Me too." She dropped her knees away from her and inched closer. He didn't breathe a word as she reached for his arm and chest. Everywhere she touched heated him. When he stared at her, he wondered if this was how a man in the desert saw a mirage, because Martha was too good to be true. She couldn't be real. She stood and then unzipped her dress, motioning for them both to head to his bedroom. In the hall, she let the dress fall to the ground as he followed behind her and said, "You look almost perfect with that necklace. We just need to remove the last of your clothes." As she neared the door, she pushed it open and turned toward him. His body was hard as she said, "Jordan Bentley, I'm happy. Let's see if this necklace has that magic power now." "Intriguing. My job tonight is to make you much happier." He closed the door after they'd both entered. Martha was his, and right now he never wanted to let go. Chapter 10. The next morning, Martha reached over from her side of the bed and cuddled into Jordan's arms. She released a sigh and just stayed still while she felt the sunshine on her cheeks. It would be hard for anyone to get to them in a high-rise building, this far up in the sky, and her body felt too warm and mushy to think beyond the fact that Jordan was right beside her. She brushed his arm, feeling the hairs tickle her skin. Jordan Bentley was awesome. Until this weekend, she hadn't noticed how caring, protective, or funny he'd been. He's always been the cute customer, and now he was her husband. The thought left her breathless. He woke up suddenly, like he'd just heard a gun being shot. She stilled and watched, waiting for him to say something. His body was tight from fright, But instead of explaining, he rolled his shoulders, pushed his legs off the bed, clearly shaking off whatever that nightmare had been, and picked up his boxer briefs from the floor. "We should get going." "Where?" She swiveled her legs to his side of the bed while he sat. He pulled up his underwear. "School. It's the most common place we go, and the best place to be seen." Seen? Right. They needed to act like this marriage was official and they were happy and in love. She stood, picking up her own underwear and bra, and asked while she pulled them on, "So, you think it's Jessica?" He leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Anything is possible, so we'll ensure we see her today and act very, very happy." Her heart beat faster from the touch. Part of her wanted to pull him back to bed, ask him what his nightmare had been, but her mind raced. The deal they'd made included pretending to be in love. She glanced at the clock on her cell phone and read it was already 8:15. She covered her lips as she needed to brush and said, "She's in my 9 o'clock class, which I'll need to run to or I'll be late." She was halfway in the bathroom when he called out, "Perfect, I'll drive you and meet you when the class ends outside the door." "Sounds good." She cleaned up fast. He must have done the same because when she went into the kitchen area, he wore clean jeans and a polo shirt while he handed her a to-go mocha latte and a muffin on a plate. They headed to the glass kitchen table by the bay window overlooking the blue ocean. "Great. Can't wait to buy my wife lunch in the cafeteria, which is something I never thought I'd say." She sipped her mocha and cut her muffin in half. The chocolate chips looked inviting. She took a quick bite that melted in her mouth. This was clearly freshly baked. "If you want, we can let people know we're taking one of those weekend cruises that the guy in the hallway is always selling, so people think we're taking a honeymoon." He snapped his fingers like she'd just suggested the perfect plan. "Good thinking, though next weekend we'll go on a better ship than the one that guy's selling. I'll give you the plans after your class." She finished her muffin and took another sip of her coffee. Her pulse zipped from the caffeine and having this simple meal with Jordan. "Okay, you can plan it." Once they were finished, he took her plate and returned to the kitchen sink. She checked her new backpack for her new laptop and smoothed her new gray slacks that were way too soft and buttery. Jordan pressed his hand on her back to get her to follow him as he said, "You look great. I feel strange in this outfit." She pulled the hem of her new sky blue top that was also soft as a feather while they headed into the elevator with their cars. He walked her to the car door while they descended. "You look good, though." Martha sat and checked her phone. 8:50. Her heart beat faster while he took the driver's seat. As they landed on the first floor, he turned on his engine. She said, "We only have 10 minutes to make it to class, and we're not even on campus." He put sunglasses on and handed her an extra set. "I'll drive fast. You'll have time to spare. Hold your hand up in class a lot. Let Jessica see your ring, but try not to speak to her." She put the sunglasses on while he turned onto Collins Ave. There was absolutely no way they'd make it, and she'd have to find a seat anywhere. She shook her head and said, "I won't have time anyhow." He had her on campus in 5 minutes and at the door of her class in another 2. She had no idea how he managed to drive so fast through traffic, but she'd refused to suggest he needed to slow down. Outside the door, she lingered with Jordan for a minute. As Jessica and her friends approached, Jordan lifted her chin, kissed her lightly, and said, "Remember my beautiful Martha, I love you." Her heart did a double beat, and she almost melted into a puddle. If only that was true. She held his hands and whispered, "I love you too. You're the only man in my heart." The words flowed out of her like she spoke an absolute truth, though that was silly. She rocked on her heel, intending to kiss Jordan again, when Ricky's voice said from behind her, "This is too much." "Ricky?" She turned around quickly. He wasn't even in her class. His class was a floor below them, as they walked together all the time. Ricky shook his head on those broad shoulders of his. "You're in love this fast? You know he's using you, and will likely dump you tomorrow." Drat, what could she say? Her mind raced with possibilities, though. Once again, she couldn't formulate anything witty. Jordan said, "Martha and I decided to get married yesterday. Not that it's your business. My wife clearly chose to be with me." Her skin shouldn't jitter. This reaction wasn't good, but she understood that it came from being judged by her friend without being able to tell him the truth. And Ricky's blue eyes were like icicles that might have the power to freeze her and whatever he stared at right now. She held Jordan's hand as Ricky asked, "Is that true? Are you now married?" She'd hoped to somehow avoid her friends and family with this temporary marriage, but she nodded and let the warmth in her heart guide her words. "Yes, Jordan is the best man I've ever met." "Whatever." Ricky turned his back and walked away with his short, spiky blonde hair that most girls found intensely attractive. The professor passed them in the hall, heading into the lecture hall. Martha motioned with her head. "Class has started. I have to run." Without thinking or looking, she took her usual seat and opened her new laptop. She was so focused on finding the new writing app that she didn't pay attention to who sat next to her. Once she was settled, she glanced to her side and froze. Jessica smiled at her, her own laptop open but ignored. Martha forced a neutral expression and tried to recover her thoughts and actions as she asked, "Jessica, why are you in the front row?" Jessica tapped manicured fingernails on the table and tilted her head while she stared at Martha. "How else could I speak to you?" The professor started talking. Perfect timing. Martha settled her fingers into position on the keyboard. "After class 1, guess. I'm taking notes." Puff. Jessica denounced the idea and let out a sigh. "I pay for my notes in this class. I'll have the lecture pack sent to your email." "Is it true you married Jordan?" Martha's face felt hot. This wasn't good. She glanced down at the keyboard, but then back at Jessica as she nodded. "Yes, we're happy." "Is he paying you?" Jessica asked in rapid fire like she was shooting straight for her answer. Martha's entire body tightened. So far, she hadn't received a dime. "No." Jessica's sly, mocking smile clearly said she didn't believe her. "Yeah, right. Your face gives you away. Look, you don't have to pretend with me. I know he was willing to pay me. I just hadn't realized he'd been so desperate. It will be better for you if we're friends." If she could shrink into a small ant and scurry out fast, she'd prefer it to being under Jessica's scrutiny. However, it was time to tell this girl she needed to go. Martha intended to say just that, but instead said, "You and I cannot be friends, Jessica." Why had she asked? She'd meant to sound declamatory and fierce. Jessica nodded. "Absolutely, because when the 30 days are over, Jordan will marry me." Her skin buzzed. Maybe she had interfered with their love story, though Jordan hadn't sounded enamored, her new favorite word of his. Martha waited till the professor passed her seat while she lectured. "What?" Jessica flounced her hair while she dug out her cell phone. "And I won't be a temporary starter wife." Seriously? But the arrangement was to pretend that she and Jordan were a love match. She shook her head and said, "I'm not that." Jessica leaned closer and raised her eyebrow. "Then prove it. Walk away from Jordan right now. Leave the best man she'd ever found." Martha covered her heart with her arms. "I am not leaving the man I love." Jessica stared at Martha's face and then gave a snarling laugh. "I actually believe that you care for Jordan. Either you're a great actress or a complete idiot." Her skin now burned to the point she wondered if it was possible to burst. "Why are you laughing?" Jessica elbowed her like they were friends. "Because it's funny. You aren't going to live happily ever after with Jordan Bentley. Anything is possible." Her voice sounded dry and hoarse. Jessica shouldn't be able to get to her like this. Jessica checked her email again like she hadn't just fired cruel words at Martha. "Jordan hasn't changed. He's always been a collector of fine, expensive goods. He's royalty. You have no family, no money, and you won't be important in this life or the next, if you believe in that sort of thing." She curled her shoulders and stared at her empty computer screen. "Leave me alone, Jessica." Jessica shrugged and checked her social media while she said, "I can't. As a friend and fellow woman, I need to warn you." "Yeah, right." Martha turned despite the tightness of her neck and asked, "Warn me? About what?" Jessica showed her an email on her laptop that was sent to Martha's mother through a chain. Jessica had asked her mother, who asked one of her friends who then knew Ricky's parents ran a restaurant, who then knew her mother's email. The email basically said that Martha was acting like a gold-digging slut who was embarrassing her mother. Jessica scrolled up and let her read that her mother was coming just as Jessica whispered, "Your mother is on her way." Wow. No one had ever doxed her like that in high school, as she never caused problems for anyone to maliciously publish her private information, and it seemed so juvenile that anyone might reach out to her family. Martha's eyebrows rose. "My mother?" Jessica was less of a threat with each passing moment. Seriously? Her biggest weapon was emailing her mother and maybe the lawyer with her suspicions? Jessica laughed. Yes, she's on her way to campus because her daughter didn't tell her about her own wedding. You called my mother? She repeated herself, but it was almost funny. How had she built up Jessica as a real threat? She hadn't told her mother because she hadn't wanted either a lecture or her opinion, which would just aggravate her. If her mother heard Jordan had serious money, she'd expect Martha to grab his cash like a common thief and then share the loot with her. As a threat, though, Jessica severely lacked imagination. The professor ended class and left the lecture hall. She'd missed if there were any last-minute notes. I bet she's here already, Jessica said, tucking her laptop away. Martha zipped the lightweight laptop into its designated pocket. So what? Jessica searched her face for a reaction. Pfft, Martha stared right at her without blinking. It's pretty lowball, but not a big deal. I thought you were way more menacing, but it turns out you're nothing, so I'm going. Her words had been strong, and her shoulders were straight as she sashayed out of the classroom with her head up. She entered the hall and saw Jordan waiting for her with a mocha latte, but this time from the coffee shop she'd worked at. She knew that white and green cup anywhere. Now he'd have to meet her mother, something she'd hoped to avoid. He handed it to her. Is everything okay? She wrapped her fingers around the warm, frothy beverage with thanks. Jordan, it seems my mother is coming to campus. Jessica emailed her and basically said I was throwing myself at you. Jessica, who must have stopped to talk to friends, left the lecture hall. Jordan called over Martha's shoulder. Say, Jessica? Yes, Jordan? Jessica batted her pretty eyelashes at him. Jordan wrapped his arms around Martha, hugging her from behind, and spoke while leaning on her shoulder. Stay away from my wife. I'm having my lawyers draft up a complaint, and I will get a restraining order if you approach her, ever again. Too bad. Martha and I were just becoming friends. Jessica hugged her laptop and strolled down the hall like she hadn't been affected. Jordan let her go once Jessica turned the corner. Martha's heart beat faster and she looked up at him. I could never be friends with her. Jordan rubbed her lower back and motioned for them to get going. It's fine. Let's just get your mother and figure this out, together. It will be fun to win her over. You'll do that easily. She sipped her latte, and as they walked outside, the bright sun hit her skin. She kissed his cheek. Okay, Jordan, let's ensure whoever is taking photos of us will see this as real as we get. He smiled but kept walking with her toward the cafeteria. Why will it be easy? I don't know much about your mother, so tell me. My mom will lecture me for not including her. Why didn't you invite her to our wedding? 'Cause she'd assume this was about your money and she'd hassle me for cash for the rest of my life. I see. Any moment, her mother would be here. She had no idea how to balance being lovey-dovey and sending her mother home, but she'd figure it out. Jordan and she hadn't done anything wrong. Not really. Chapter 11. Jordan knew he wasn't the best boyfriend or husband in the world. He'd never planned on being either of those things to anyone. However, Martha's sweetness dug into his soul, and he'd help her if he could, for now. But long-term, his life was better when he was alone. Nobody else was in danger because of his money or bloodline. His business venture might take him around the world, which would likely interfere with Martha's intent to treat patients. Martha's warmth next to him as they walked the small path lined with palm trees toward the main cafeteria made ice enter his heart, despite the heat. Martha was the last person he should ever be involved with. Sweet didn't fit in his lifestyle, not forever. They'd made the mistake of getting involved beyond the business arrangement of separate bedrooms, and now he was meeting her mother. He should have known better, but it was too late to change anything now. He held the cafeteria door open for her, and she waved at an older woman near the taco stand. She hugged the woman with dark hair and blonde highlights, but whose face had no wrinkles. If it was true women eventually turn into their mothers, at least Martha had a shot at a clear face despite adversity. Martha let her go and said, "Mom, you sure got here fast." Her mother motioned toward the plastic orange chairs and white table she'd been occupying. "You knew I was coming?" Martha placed her hand on his arm and his skin prickled immediately. Jessica is the one who sent the email, and she is just jealous of Jordan and me. You and Jordan? Her mother looked from Martha to him in confusion. Ma'am, I'm Jordan Bentley." He glanced at Martha, who hadn't filled him in on her mother's first name. He racked his brain, but no answer came up despite that they were supposed to be in love. He smiled benignly to fake his happiness. "I'm so excited to finally meet you, Mrs. Vargas. Please call me Allie." Her mother's gaze narrowed in on him like he was a predator. "And I guess it's nice to meet you. Are you dating my daughter?" If looks could kill, her mother was a velociraptor. Martha then ran her hand up and down his arm like she needed to touch him for luck. "Actually, Mom, Jordan and I decided to get married yesterday." Despite her warning earlier, Martha was clearly a great actress. He almost believed she cared about him. Her mother's face went white as she asked, "Wait, what? You're only 21. Martha clutched him closer as she lifted her chin. "And you were barely 18 when you had me. Wait, the last thing he needed was to be a father." Jordan's face drained of blood as he thought back to their activities. He'd used protection every time. Her mother came to the same conclusion because she asked, "Are you pregnant then?" "No." Martha continued to hold on to him like he might disappear. He kept Martha at his side and said, "We wanted to be together, ma'am, because we love each other. Martha makes my world more enjoyable with her at my side." If anyone wasn't the best actor right now, it was him. Enjoyable didn't begin to describe how Martha made every day of his life more alive, fun, relaxing, exciting. And if he loved anyone ever, he'd fall hard for Martha. She was imperfectly perfect, and he never should have involved himself with Martha, ever. Her mother turned her attention back toward him. "Who are you exactly, and where do you come from?" Right. He needed to get his head in the game and dazzle her mother. He squeezed Martha's hand and said, "I'm the man in love with your daughter. I grew up in Bal Harbour." Her eyes widened as she sat back in her chair, taking in his words. She leaned forward with a less haughty demeanor. "Bal Harbour? What do your parents do?" Money clearly mattered to Allie Vargas. The way she'd changed her tone and body language as if she suddenly approved made her motivation obvious. Martha had warned him, but he expected at least a few more questions. "My father was a deposed prince, and he sat on the board of a few oil companies. My mother did some PR for my father and the family." Allie turned to Martha and stood, pointing toward the small garden area outside the cafeteria for those who wanted to sit in the sun and never-ending humidity. "Honey, can I speak to you a moment?" Martha met his gaze and held herself still. She didn't want to go, he could tell, but she said, "Sure, what's up?" Her mother tried to go outside, but Martha held back, closer to the door so he could hear her mother whisper, "Did you sign a prenuptial?" All his body buzzed with interest. Martha, in a habit he was coming to recognize, pushed her hair back. "I think so. I signed papers from his lawyer." Her mother had the smile of a shark as she said, "I see. Do you get a generous payout if you ever divorce?" His entire body froze like an ice cube. How had Martha turned out so kind? "You should have talked to me first, before you signed away anything." Martha placed her hands on her hips. "Mother." Her mother wrapped her arms around her shoulders and more quietly said, "I just want you to protect yourself." "Mom, I'm fine." Martha pushed off her hug. Martha wouldn't fit in his world. He should have maintained the boundaries. Her soft kiss shouldn't have burned through him. He knew better than to be charmed with her innocence and sweet nature. Neither of those qualities had ever been in his life, and probably shouldn't. She walked back with her mother, and he stood, manners ingrained from birth, as they sat at the table. Her mother fixed her dress like she needed to iron out a wrinkle as she turned toward him. "Jordan, I wish you both would have spoken to me before getting married. I'd like to meet your parents." The knife in his heart twisted. They both died a few months ago. Her mother visibly shuddered as she placed her hand on her chest. They died? Well, if they were going to talk about the past, then he needed to lay all his cards out there for her to see. It was nothing that wasn't online. They were murdered, actually. She lowered her hand and reached for his that lay on the table between them. "Oh, that's horrible. I'm so sorry. What would they have said about your sudden marriage to my daughter?" He took his hand back but glanced at Martha. His father would have said a woman with a sweet soul was worth more than diamonds. My father would have approved of Martha. Her mother nodded. "That's good. And your mother?" Fair. Now his mother was a different personality. How his parents had lived and died together, he was unsure, though he shrugged. I don't know, honestly. My mother never approved of women in my life. She picked up a napkin at the table and suddenly started cleaning the plastic surface as she asked, "Would you have listened to your mother or father then, if they'd been alive?" Growing up, his mother had ruled the family, though his father made all of the financial decisions. To be honest, I'm not sure. I never had to face that choice. My mother usually interfered with my older brother's life far more than mine. Her mother put the napkin down. I see. Shall we get lunch? The plan was to convince people they were in love. He stood and offered his hand to her mother to assist. Why don't I take you both to a much nicer restaurant? Martha doesn't have another class until 2. Ally accepted his hand as she lifted herself off the seat and said, "Sounds lovely. Where are we going?" Then he turned toward Martha, but she was already up. He offered his arm to both of them, and they accepted. "There is a nice restaurant in the St. Regis. Shall we go there?" "Sure, Jordan," Martha said. Walking outside with both of them was like being between polar opposites. Martha's sweetness tugged at his heart, but her mother's calculations spoke to his brain. If Martha was like her mother, she'd fit into his world easier, but he'd not be affected nearly as hard as he was. Once they reached the black tar with yellow lines and countless cars, her mother said, "Martha, you have a car? Jordan gave me one. You'll see it soon, I guess." Martha's face was red. "But Mom, I'm going to ride with Jordan. See you there?" "Okay, sweetie." Her mother beamed like she was the happiest person in the world as she got into a silver Prius that had to be 10 years old. Without another word to Martha, as he was being eaten up from the inside, he opened the passenger door for her. Then he went to the driver's side, still trying not to think. He slipped inside and started the car. As they drove off, Martha cocked her head toward him. "Jordan, I thought we were proving our marriage was real on campus." Fair. This was a business deal. She'd reminded him yesterday at the courthouse. He didn't need to confuse them anymore. Martha was in his life short-term only. If there is a PI snooping around us, then going to a public restaurant with your mother looks good. She crossed her arms and stared at him with unblinking eyes. Why are you so, I don't know, uptight right now? Business partners had to be a better fit. He had no right to feel this ice inside his heart, and it wasn't Martha's fault. She'd been clear with him. Somehow, he was the one confusing everything. In the past, he would find somewhere alone to think. It wasn't an option right now, and Martha hadn't said or done anything to change their deal. His own thoughts made no sense, and he wasn't being logical. He ignored the hum in his veins and gripped the steering wheel. "I heard your mother's comments on the prenuptial." She unlocked her arms and then massaged his shoulder. "Look, we have a deal for $100 million, and that was in writing. I am assuming that's the prenup. So why does that bother you now?" "It shouldn't. You warned me." Her gentle touch made him uneasy. He shouldn't be heated by her caress when they were impossible as a couple. "But still, your mother seemed predatory." "She's a bit much." She sat back and folded her hands in her lap as they turned onto the main street. "That's why I didn't invite her to our wedding. She'd be after a piece of the money if she knew, and I can already hear the comments for the next century that will now come up whenever she wants to buy something." His heart raced. He wanted to explode, but instead he said as calmly as he could, "Martha, she's your mother. You grew up watching her." She watched him with almost clinical interest that his own therapists mirrored as he turned onto Collins Ave. "Look, she's a nurse, but she has no financial skills. She's not a gold digger, but then she's never met a rich man interested in her. She's convinced herself she's only attracted to bad boys with no cash." Her words were like ice picks to his heart as he tried to figure Martha Vargas out. "Is that why you're okay with divorcing me and not dating Ricky? Neither one of us is bad enough for you?" Her face paled, and she shook her head, hurt. "Don't be like this, Jordan." "Like what?" He pulled into the hotel. The restaurant overlooked the beach and Atlantic Ocean. She pressed her palm to his hand. Bitter. "I warned you that we might have the rich dad, poor dad problems because that comment makes no sense at all." Martha was logical and smart and right. His skin itched as if she'd doused him with reality. He shouldn't be upset at all, yet his gut clenched tight. Jealousy wasn't pretty, and she couldn't know she'd triggered him. He gave his car keys to the valet. She joined him outside beneath the awning. "Let's just impress your mother and talk about this when we get home." They turned to walk inside, but she hugged him and kissed his cheek. "Okay. Before we meet my mother, I wanted to tell you something." "What?" He wasn't sure how much more honesty he could take. She let out a loud sigh and flipped her hair. "For the record, Jordan Bentley, thank you for being kind to my mom. You are 1 in a million for being this sweet to me, and I didn't want to wreck us by inviting her to the wedding." This time, she lightly kissed his lips, and his body became hard as a rock. He physically wanted to pull her closer and not let go, though he restrained himself. Martha's kiss sent a shockwave through him. He stopped moving, though they stood at the electric door that opened, letting a blast of air conditioning hit them. Maybe last night and the night before were mistakes. She covered her lips, but then blinked back hurt and looked inside the lobby rather than at him. "Well, we have at least 29 more days to live together. Perhaps we can stop sharing a bed now so that we don't make a bigger mistake." They linked arms, but she dragged her feet as they went forward and stared down. He gently shook her to get her attention and said, "Smile, we're heading into the restaurant." Her expression was clearly fake, but she did as he suggested. His heart needed to be safe from her. A little pain now would prevent bigger heartbreak in the future, and his mind raced that he needed to remember she'd never fit into his world. She didn't have the skills to survive. It was better for both of them to stop this train ride now. Chapter 12. Martha's entire body was tight, and her hands were fists as they walked through the door from the garage together. Jordan had been standoffish and cold since her last class at 2. Once he closed the door, Martha knew she had to break their silence. Going to their separate rooms felt childish, and she wasn't even sure what had happened today. She tugged her ear and saw how his lips were thin underneath that beard of his. "I don't know what to say, which is honestly a first, Jordan." "There is nothing to say." He shrugged and placed his keys on the table near the garage. "You were always clear with me regarding your expectations. I'm going to take a shower." Expectations? Had his changed? If so, they needed to talk. She sucked in her lower lip and forced herself to relax, but her muscles were tight. Perhaps water would cool her down too. She nodded. "Fair enough. I need to get this ridiculous makeup off. I must look like a complete fool. Meet you in the living room in half an hour?" He turned toward the hall, but then back to her. "You're beautiful now, and you're beautiful without anything on at all. Don't wear anything to please me, ever." Martha's heart melted. His frosty attitude made her prickly, but the intense heat in his gaze changed her mood. Whatever was going on in his mind, hopefully they could talk it out. She ran her hand through her hair. "Don't worry, I won't." Martha's shower had been fast, and she'd been in the living room with her books and laptop for 10 minutes. She kept glancing at the time in the corner of her screen as her mind raced. Something had happened to Jordan today. Had it been Jessica? It would be nice if it was, and that he wasn't secretly in love with Jessica or anything. However, it was probably her mother, Ally Vargas, and her dreams of money and winning the lottery and somehow having Martha as her personal piggy bank weighted her down. Her mother's attitude had no doubt doused Jordan's mood too. Hopefully they could forget her, at least for the rest of the day. Footsteps echoed in the hall, and she glanced at the screen one more time. At the precise moment he'd promised, Jordan strolled into the room wearing designer blue sweatpants and a white wife-beater stretched across his muscular chest. She jumped off the couch like pigeons about to swarm when they see a piece of bread. That wasn't a good image, and she smoothed out her shirt to not seem so desperate in this conversation. Slow wasn't her usual style, but she'd try. If he hadn't been affected by her mother, and she'd been mistaken about his attitude, then she needed to be calm, not all worked up where she couldn't see clearly. She ignored how her skin trembled and bounced into the kitchen, taking out the ordering pad. "Jordan, what do you want for dinner?" He shook his head and leaned against the counter. The woodsy smell of his cologne was palatable. She swallowed and wished he'd kiss her and tell her everything was going to be okay. "I'm not hungry. I think I should hit the gym." He turned like he'd leave, but she caught his hand against the counter. "Are you avoiding me because of my mother?" I swear I'm not like her. I know you're not, Martha. It's not that. Jordan leaned forward without moving his hand. It's not like you enjoy drinking a beer, which is what I'd want. You didn't touch the last one I ordered for you. True, or the wine he'd given her before that. Her mind raced with confusion that this was his issue with her. She wasn't supposed to care what a man thought about her drinking. Besides, she'd never wanted approval from anyone. This was his home, so she offered an explanation. I never really drank because I was afraid I'd screw up my life if I started drinking too much alcohol. He tugged free from her touch. See? You should have told me that. Goosebumps grew on her arms from his cold reaction. She shouldn't feel anything. She knew better and rubbed her arms to warm them up. We're only married for 30 days. Why would we have that conversation? He stilled, his expression earnest. Because I ordered it for you and not a lemonade or iced tea, something that you would prefer. Her heart fell into her stomach as he turned away. What's really going on with you, Jordan? You've changed so much today. If it wasn't my mother, then it was something else, and I want to know. Did you want to marry Jessica? He straightened out his groomed beard and glanced at her. Maybe she'd have been a better choice after all. Wow, the words were like a punch to her gut. She wanted to cry and throw things at the same time, and she never threw things, ever. Tears welled in her eyes as she shouted, "Really? What's with the change of heart?" His voice was cold and dripped with apathy as he said, "Definitely not a change." Her face was hot and her cheeks grew wet. Drat, she hadn't meant to cry. She wiped her face as he headed for the gym. "I thought you said you liked me." "I did." He turned toward her. "I still do." Nothing made sense then. She reached for tissues on top of the refrigerator and tried to get a hold of herself as she asked, "So if it's not my mother or Jessica, what did I do to you today that upset you?" "Absolutely nothing. This wasn't good at all. How had this all spun out of control then?" She swallowed and thankfully no more tears spilled, though she sniffled. "So what's going on? Tell me." He pressed his palms into the counter with more of his weight and then bounced off. He paced and shook his head. "Why can't you let this go?" She waited until he stopped pacing before the window, but then joined him, resting her hand on his shoulder. "Because I like you too, and now everything is falling apart, and I don't even know why." He didn't shrug her off, but he closed his eyes. She refused to move without answers, and finally he said, "You didn't trust me to tell me why your mother wasn't invited to the wedding." Her mother at their ceremony? Seriously? Her mind stopped spinning. She took a deep breath and then asked, "Would she have been good company for your brother and sister-in-law?" "Clearly she bothered you today, which means I was right to not invite her." He didn't budge. "How come your sister didn't come to our wedding?" He flinched. She felt it, though he didn't move, as he said, "She's in college across the country. I didn't want her to waste her time for my temporary wedding. She knew my plans before I ever met you. She'd studied enough to understand siblings don't always trust each other or want the best for each. So many people's personal issues were related to family. So she raised her eyebrow and asked, "And you trust her?" "Absolutely." That loyalty in that statement would have bit her in the buttocks if it had been a bullet of words. But she blinked and realized part of her reaction was defensive. She let his shoulder go and took a step back as she nodded. "I see. Well, it's good that we talked about this now." She returned the pad of paper to the drawer and walked the few steps toward the living room. As she neared the couch, Jordan said, "Wait, Martha." She crossed her arms as he approached her. She wasn't ready for more sparring. Not yet, but she asked, "Why?" Jordan's body tensed. He stopped and shook his head. "I don't want to hurt you. We both agreed our relationship would be business. I can't afford for this to be more." That didn't make any sense. She gingerly took a step forward. "Did I become more expensive? You can keep the car. It's not financial, Martha." He backed away like she scared him. "Liking you was never part of the plan." The knots in her stomach were so tight that it squeezed her ability to breathe. She stared at him, unsure what to do, as she said, "Agreed. And I didn't force you to take me to bed or anything." He winced and widened his stance. "No, you didn't. You're not to blame for any of this. I am." "For what?" She still didn't understand what was wrong. He paced while she watched, waiting. Minutes ticked past, and finally he waved at her and said, "I'm going to the gym." She couldn't move or think or feel, not until she heard the door close behind him and she was alone. Once again, her mother interfered with her life with her own expectations, and questions about his bank account made her seem like she was born to be a leech instead of his equal that he could trust. Then she fell onto the couch and crouched up into her knees. She hurt all over, but at least she didn't cry. Back in high school, her favorite counselor, Mrs. Smith, had said once that her mother did not define her choices. If only that thought dug back in her heart as a truth. Eventually, she sat up and picked up her biology book. Right now, she couldn't think or let herself analyze Jordan. Nothing made sense, and if she stayed like this, she'd be dead inside. Martha read her book and highlighted, then typed her notes into her computer from the highlighted sections as she always did. The door clicked open, and she glanced at the clock. He'd been gone an hour, and she hadn't even realized it, which was good. She pushed the book down on the coffee table. "How was the gym?" Jordan went into the refrigerator and took a beer. He held one up as an offering, but she shook her head no, motioning toward her book. He closed the refrigerator and opened the bottle with an opener from the drawer. "It was fine. What are you studying?" She held up the book so he could read the title. "I got behind, and I need to get good grades to get into a master's program." Beer in hand, he sat on the chair opposite her. "Why are you using that old laptop?" "It's more comfortable," she stilled. She hadn't even realized she'd picked up her old reliable. "My fingers know the keys." He sipped his beer and then held the bottle between his legs as he leaned forward, inspecting her laptop. "Now that's a lie. The keys are missing the printed letters." Her heart shouldn't shrink. She'd never had his resources. She closed the laptop to stop him from judging. "Why does it matter to you right now? We're in private. No one can see us." He sat straighter, took another sip, and nodded. "You're right. Happy studying." His knees curved, and he intended to get up. She pushed her bio book back and asked, "What kind of grades do you get?" He shrugged but stayed in his seat. "Grades don't really matter to me. I'll get into anything I want with little effort." "Right." She crossed her arms, hugging her waist. She couldn't even blink at his arrogance. "That's another way our worlds are different. I value hard work." His brown eyes were like saucers, but he leaned forward again and spoke like he imparted words of wisdom. "And I can buy my way into anything I want." Her stomach tightened. Money didn't buy everything, especially not her. But then this past weekend had proved the opposite. She'd been so stupid, but she lifted her chin to argue. "Almost. I guess you thought if you bought me things, you'd win me over." He rose and looked down at her. "Maybe it's better that we don't talk about this and from now on just live as roommates." For the best, but she kept that comment to herself. Instead, she pulled her biology book toward her. "You're right. We can just be roommates until our time is up. No problem." He walked to his room, and she opened her laptop. Typing her notes didn't stop her from feeling a sense of loss. Sleeping in his room had been a mistake. Chapter 13. Lying in that lonely bed in her own room all night just made Martha feel colder on the inside, despite the extra blanket. At no point did she actually sleep. She stared out her window toward the intracoastal and expensive homes and condo buildings near the inlet. Everything was so beautiful outside. The moon was almost full and reflected over the water. It illuminated the black ocean and every so often so she saw swells in the distance. But she had no one to share the beauty with. Jordan had been a huge mistake, and she'd let her curiosity and lust confuse everything. In the morning, the sun blossomed, as if from the ocean itself, and it lit up her room so much she didn't need electricity, though she was still cold and her choices kept making her eyes water now. Once she'd showered, she headed out the door. There was school and routine to fall back on. Her entire body was tense. She needed to learn to let go. She rounded to the living area and saw Jordan at the dining room table with warm bread, feta cheese, walnuts, and a coffee. He also had a to-go cup that he left on the edge. He pointed to it. "I know you have class, so I ordered you a mocha." At least he'd remembered what she liked, but that didn't make her feel better. Her stomach flipped a few times, but she picked up her coffee and refused to sound nervous as she said, "I'm going to drive myself to class. See you at lunch for our pretense." His eyes widened like she'd struck him. Surely not, but she held herself together while he nodded. Sure, I'll meet you outside your classroom and we'll walk. If they spent the next few weeks wielding their words as weapons of war, then she needed to stay away and study at the library. Her mind raced again, and she wished she'd never showed up at his door asking for a job. No need. He put feta cheese on his steaming bread and said, P.I. That was enough of an explanation. She'd promised to be his wife, and she always kept her promises, even if their marriage was all a sham. She headed to the car garage. Okay, fine. See you there. The drive to class was lonely but fast. She parked the car in the same place Jordan had yesterday and headed into the campus. At the main center area, Ricky called out, So you're all alone this morning? A friend. She needed one. She turned and waited for him as he jogged to her side. Yeah, Jordan doesn't have class this morning, so I drove myself. Nice car. He glanced backward into the parking lot to her Mercedes, and she'd give it back as soon as the month was over. Goosebumps grew on her arms as she felt like an imposter. I guess. Jordan thought I needed a car, so he bought it for me. I didn't think you were a gold digger. Ricky kept pace beside her as she headed to her class. Her heart raced at his accusation. She glanced up at him and said, I'm not. He narrowed his gaze. New car, new clothes, fast marriage. Her skin dampened with perspiration, and it wasn't the heat of the day, though she looked ahead and said, fast and new are different. Ricky took her hand, bringing them to a stop. When I finish school, I'm going to own my own computer company. I won't always work 3 jobs. I'm developing my idea every night to perfect it. I just need time to work out the kinks, but I moved too slowly with you, Martha. And they both understood he was meant for more, but they were friends only. She pulled her hand back. What do you mean, Ricky? His blue eyes held hers, and after a deep breath he said, I'm in love with you. Jordan had been right about Ricky's feelings for her. Oh no, if only he'd said that to her earlier. Ricky had been her friend and confidant for years now. If only she returned his affection, because then her life would make more sense. Ricky could never break her spirit like Jordan had done. She didn't want to hurt him, so she swayed and looked at her new shoes. Ricky, I wish you'd told me before, he let out a sigh. But I'm too late. Now that was the truth. She wished it wasn't, but she hugged her waist and admitted something that felt right in her soul. Absolutely. I'm in love with Jordan. He shook his head, but they walked toward her class again. I don't see how you two work. You're too good for him. You don't know him to judge him personally. The truth was, she didn't either. They were so different, and yesterday his defensive reaction had thrown her for a loop. Marrying him was a highlight of her life she'd never forget, even if it was only for a month. He's not a bad man or anything. Ricky entered the next building where her class was located and held the door for her as he said, But he's never worked, not like us. True, but that wasn't the issue. They had bigger ones. Mostly that Jordan didn't return her affections, but she kept that to herself, swallowed and stayed on topic. Working a low-end job like I did that pays minimum wage so I have to work in 3 places and be tired all the time doesn't make me a better person than Jordan. Also, having money doesn't mean he doesn't have plans for his life, too. Jordan's a wonderful guy. Ricky shrugged as they made their way down the hall. I guess, though I am completely biased. She stopped again. Why? Because I'm jealous. He motioned for them to continue. He won the heart of the prettiest girl I've ever met. How sweet. She'd had no clue, if only she felt anything for Ricky, because he was a good guy too. They reached her classroom door. I'm sorry, Ricky. I have to get to class. Ricky took a step to leave as he said, Good luck on that quiz. Her mind raced. No, she wanted to scream, but she asked blankly, Quiz? He stuffed his hands in his pockets. You talked about it last week and totally forgot about it with everything going on. Yeah, right. Thanks. She headed into class. For the next 50 minutes, she couldn't focus. The professor handed out the quiz and normal English words were all mixed up in her mind. Her head swirled. This wasn't good. She tried her best, handed in her quiz and left. As promised, Jordan waited outside the door. She walked over to him and part of her wanted to hug him. Another part reminded her that they were nothing but pretend and the divorce happening no matter her feelings. All of these emotions shouldn't have made her space out on a quiz like this. He took her backpack from her to carry as he said, "You're white." She let him have her bag. It was all pretense, or so she told herself, but she adjusted her hair and explained, "I blanked out on that quiz." He placed his free hand on her back. "But you studied for 4 hours last night." She spit out her words as she'd been so stupid. "I studied biology. This was childhood behaviors." He patted her gently like he wanted to appease her while they walked. "I'm sure you did fine." No, this was all a mistake. She was screwing up her life. This was a huge problem. Her hands fisted at her sides as she shook her head. "I never walk in blind. I screwed this all up. I was so stupid." He scratched at his beard. "That's not a word I'd use to describe you. This was wrong. Everything was wrong. And she needed to fix this, fast." She massaged her temples like that might stop the oncoming headache. "But I was so worried about how you felt about me and why you were so cold that I completely forgot about that quiz. Hopefully this is fixable as it's not the final or midterm." He asked calmly, like it wasn't a big deal. "How many points was that quiz worth to your final grade?" That was a legitimate question. The professor threw away the lowest grade, and so far her lowest was a 92. She just had no wiggle room now if she made another mistake. "It doesn't matter. I screwed up." Jordan continued to stride behind her. "And you'll fix it." They headed outside onto the path to the cafeteria, sunshine warming her head, palm trees swaying. "You're right. I will fix my mistakes." She headed toward the sandwich shop as she craved the chicken salad they made, Jordan at her side. "Good." Jordan let her go first in line as he said, "Let's order." No, this wasn't okay. Rather than get her lunch, she turned and walked outside to the empty patio so they could talk alone. Once the door closed, she said, "We should get divorced right away. I don't want to wait. We were a mistake and you can still marry Jessica and prove you loved her all along. I'll even testify to that for free if you need." He checked the door to make sure nobody was behind them and then took a step toward her as he shook his head. "But I might not get my inheritance or the ability to pay you if we do that. 100 million was nothing to sneeze at, but it wasn't worth destroying who she was. The clothes, the car, everything about her was different, and now she'd ruined her grade point by failing a quiz. It doesn't matter about me. I'm sure your lawyer can just erase me and replace me fast enough so your life is on the track you want for yourself." He loomed over her as he crossed his arms. "Martha, this temporary marriage was your idea. You said you needed the money. We made a deal." Her pulse spiked and her lips tingled like she'd asked for a kiss. And it was true, this was all her idea, so it was also her idea to stop this while she had a chance. "I have no idea how I'll pay for next year, but if I stay married to you, then I'll screw up my life even more. If I don't get the money, then I'm screwed, and I could wait years to start my own company that can possibly end global warming." Jordan shifted toward a palm tree, away from her. She reached out and brushed the strong muscle of his back. This shouldn't hurt him, but they needed to stop now. "You'll be fine. Your brother said he'd pay for your security. You don't need to be married, not if we both just say that you loved Jessica all your life and she rejected you. Everyone will believe that. I wouldn't, and my family wouldn't." He turned and took her hand. "Martha, if this is about the other night, I truly am sorry. This was wrong. They were wrong." "Sorry for what? I said yes, I shouldn't have, but I need to correct the mistakes I've made right now." He looked into her eyes and his nearness brought warmth and longing. "Look, let's just finish this month as we agreed. I trusted you." Boom. The word zapped through her and made her ache, and not in a good way. She pulled back and hugged her waist. "Trust? That hurts. I'm trying to help you. You and I don't make sense." He stayed close as he pressed his point. "You were always honest with me. You wanted to keep this business even after we'd enjoyed each other in bed, and I started falling for you. I won't bother you again if that's what you want, but I don't want to go through any of this with Jessica or anyone else. Just you, as you promised." "I hear what you are saying." The air smelled like his cologne, and she trembled, wishing for that stupid kiss. This wasn't fair. She shouldn't be attracted to Jordan. She was so confused and bottled up tight as she said, "I don't know. I have to think about everything. Right now, I don't want to see you for a few hours, Jordan Bentley. I want to go sit, alone, in the library and study for a bit." He partially moved toward the door, but said quietly, "Please come home tonight." "I will. That's fine." The way he said please made her weak. She had promised him. She'd signed those papers to get the money too. Her headache hit her fast and she nodded. "I need to think, okay? Look, I'll come to your place at 6 and we can have a calm discussion. I just can't let my studying slip again." "I'll see you then." He headed back inside the cafeteria. Her heart felt like it would explode and leave her as a pile of goo on the floor when the door closed behind him and he disappeared. She longed to run into his arms and kiss him, but that was a bad idea. They both knew it, so she stayed where she was, even though she wanted to disappear into the abyss and never resurface. Chapter 14. Martha's coolness unnerved him and left him wanting to break something. Jordan kept his hands at his sides as he steamrolled back to his car. He needed to get off campus and to the gym. Now, he headed to the second row where he'd parked, as his usual spot was taken by Martha's Mercedes, and clicked the fob to unlock his doors. Sneakers against the asphalt, he turned at the silver KIA on the corner as a white SUV's wheels squealed from the street. Goosebumps grew on his arms and the air around him somehow became electrified. Alarmed, Jordan ran toward his car. He wasn't fast enough. The SUV shadowed him and then revved ahead to halt before him. So close he smelled burning rubber. He committed the license plate to memory, just in case. Jordan was about to dodge between parked cars, but a young, dark-haired man came out of the SUV, holding an automatic weapon pointed right at Jordan's head, while a second man with pepper gray hair, both clearly foreign and dressed in black, said, "Jordan Bentley? Who's asking?" Jordan held his head high. That accent was like his parents'. His heart almost stopped, and his body chilled. They must be from Hoshkel. Had they killed his folks? If this was the end, he would die like a man. The older man reminded him of a grizzly bear. "Come with me." A third man came out of the SUV, younger, clean-shaven, or maybe not old enough to grow a beard. He grabbed his arm and Jordan pulled free. "Look, man, back off, now," the old man with the gun said in a quiet, "Do what I say or you die" tone. "Get in or I'll shoot you here." Jordan squared his shoulders and spoke what might be his last words, but he knew to be true. "If I get in your SUV, I'm a dead man anyhow." He braced for the hit. The old man grunted, but then a shadow behind him moved. Someone was coming. The three men hopped in the SUV like assassins, and the vehicle stormed down the road. Whoever was behind him then tapped on his shoulder. Jordan spun around, expecting someone even worse, but it was the blonde, blue-eyed boy that sniffed around Martha. Jordan? He'd saved his life? Perhaps it was best to let Martha go to him and they could live happily ever after. Her plan with Jessica would leave him dead for the most part, but that would at least be better if she was insanely happy like she deserved to be. Ricky. Who were they? Ricky pointed toward the departing SUV. Jordan glanced around where the SUV and those men had just been. Adrenaline still raced through him, but he didn't need Ricky involved. He turned back and ignored the goosebumps that were slowly dissipating from his skin. No one good. "Were you looking for me?" Ricky widened his stance. "We need to talk about Martha." Great. If this ended in a fistfight, he'd at least have a chance. But Ricky wasn't his enemy either. Jordan didn't budge as he said, "Okay, you love her. She might love you too. So, you should probably go and talk to her. She's in the library." Ricky shook his head and crossed his arms. "She doesn't love me. She said she loved you." Impossible. Martha was just honoring their agreement. Either way, this was awkward because Ricky genuinely cared for his wife. Martha had kept her word, but Jordan knew better than to believe any of the charade. Martha deserved to be happy in the future, so Jordan clicked the lock on his car and took a step to leave. "Look, give her at most a month. She'll see I'm not a good idea for her." "We both agree on that." Ricky dropped his arms. Jordan slowed as honestly, he didn't want to interrupt true love, and who knows, he might have by marrying Martha. But he motioned with his thumb. "Great, I'm going to go." "Wait," Ricky said fast. "Why?" Jordan returned to their conversation with reluctance. The SUV was long gone, and no car was on the road returning toward them. He had to call his brother and get out of plain sight. Ricky said, "I need you to treat her right." If Jordan had a chance with Martha, he'd already ruined it. He couldn't tell Ricky that, but he'd like to hold his head up if he saw both of them in the hall together. So, he decided to list her virtues. Martha is a breath of fresh air. She's honest, forthright, and full of life. She's unlike anyone else, and you need to treat her right. Ricky's stance loosened. Jordan leaned against his car and secretly wished he could kiss and hold Martha again, but he simply said, "I'll treat her better than a princess." Ricky then leaned against the car with him as they both stared at the road. Maybe something else. Princesses are often poisoned, locked away, or cursed in those fairy tales, or murdered like his mother. But Jordan flipped his keys and said, "Real life isn't like that." Ricky looked where the guys had been trying to kidnap him and shrugged. "Respect her, because she's the best woman I ever met." He offered to shake Jordan's hand. Jordan accepted. "Ricky, you have good taste." "That's not an answer." Ricky's eyebrow arched as he let go. "True," Jordan offered as he reached for his car door. "She commands respect the moment she opens her mouth." Ricky stepped back to let him go. "That's true. Martha is special." Jordan waved at him and put his foot in the car. "Well, this was a nice chat, but I have to go now." Ricky waved back. "Take care of yourself and don't get involved with whoever those men were. They look like bad news. Fair warning." Jordan nodded as he slipped into the driver's seat and put his sunglasses on. "I'll do everything in my power to avoid them." A second later, he zoomed off and the road was clear. However, as he passed palm trees and shrubs, he realized the small road didn't have much life on it at all, and his skin prickled. This was a place where he could easily be shot, and until someone stopped to investigate, no one would find him. Until now, no one had ever pointed a gun at him, and the adrenaline was different from cliff diving or other sports he'd tried. His hands trembled slightly as he dialed his older brother, who luckily answered right away. Before his brother could even say hello, Jordan said, "Aiden, what's up?" Aiden asked. He didn't want to relive what had happened to him, but he needed to tell someone, and his brother was the only one with power right now to help. "3 men approached me that I don't recognize. They were in a white SUV with the license plate J7QVTO. I wrote it down, but what did they want? They had guns and wanted me to go with them." Jordan recalled the older man with the weapon pointed at him, telling him to get in or get shot. His brother said, "Call the police, file a report." "No." He shook his head and turned on the main road with 4 lanes of traffic. "I need to get out of here. I'll be safe at home." His brother didn't argue, though Jordan heard the inflection as Aiden said, "Be careful. I'll drive fast." Since when did Aiden have their mother's commanding tone? "There is a police station on your way home," Aiden said. "Stop there and file a report." If his parents hadn't died, he'd have expected that lecture from them rather than his brother. His heart beat faster that he'd almost joined them today, and the thought sent a chill down his spine. He'd changed his mind on his brother's offer earlier. "The police and campus security weren't here to stop it. I need better security, and we were discussing the firm you recommended," Aiden quickly said. "I just hired Omega 1 Defense. I'm calling them now if you give me permission to put the detail on you and your wife." Martha would be in danger too, especially if something else happened to him. This was about the oil fields and his stock inheritance. He hadn't updated his will the other day when they'd gotten married, so she'd likely inherit the money and the danger of whoever was after him. He pictured Martha forever on the run from the man with the gun because of his stupidity. "I should have told you to do that weeks ago." "Yeah, you should have," Aiden agreed, which was the first time in this conversation that he sounded more like his brother than his parents. Jordan's heart beat a little easier as he turned onto the next street. One more street, and he'd be home. "Did Arwa take the security detail you recommended?" "Yeah, good. At least his sister wasn't as stupid as he'd been." He waited at the light for it to turn green. "And make sure Martha goes on the list. She needs to be protected if something happens to me. Make sure she gets security before her class ends. She's at school now, studying in the library." "I will," Aiden then said. "Jordan, stop at the station." At home, he'd call the police. He probably should have already, but he just needed to clear his head. "I already passed it. I'll be home soon and call then." "Be careful," Aiden said. The light turned green. Finally, he turned onto the last main drive. Soon he'd be at his building and safe in his high-rise with security. "Bye, Aiden." He placed the phone on the seat beside him and tapped the wheel. Soon he'd be home, and all would be fine. Security would show up for Martha, so she'd get home safe. Then they'd talk. This situation changed things. Jordan looked into his rearview mirror as a black SUV came closer and whispered to himself, "Get off my bumper." The SUV crashed into his car, making him jolt forward into traffic. Cars continued to pass him as his vehicle spun onto Collins Ave. The airbags deployed, sending his head and face backwards onto the chair, paralyzing him. He crashed into the median with his car facing the other direction. His head hurt, and his hand had blood on it from the window that must have cracked. Dazed, his door opened and someone screamed, "Get him!" This wasn't the same voice as the older man at the school parking lot who'd reminded him of a grizzly bear. Jordan was pulled from his car and tossed into the back of the black SUV, where a young man with black hair pressed on the gas. The man holding him was older, probably in his 30s, and built like a wrestler, and Jordan turned closer to him the second he heard the click of a gun. So this was the end. Adrenaline pumped through him again. He couldn't even blink because every second seemed to last minutes, and if he died, he refused to ever be a coward about it. He tightened his body, ready to fight. The fog of the accident in his brain wore off as he passed his own building. He tried to open the rear door, but the third man behind him, with Skinny Rat's face, clasped something metallic on his wrist. Jordan glanced down and saw handcuffs connecting him to the third guy who had a few gray hairs, but he was probably a 30-year-old man in the prime of his life who smoked a lot of cigarettes. The older smoker man again held the gun and pointed it right toward him. There was no escape. He was going to die. He swallowed and squared his shoulders. "What do you want?" the older man in charge of this crew said. "The royal family needs to let our country's resources be run by the people." No one shot at him, though they had their guns trained on him. His mother once said he could talk himself out of any situation, so he figured he'd try her method. "Look, I didn't make any rules. I've never been to your country, and besides all that, I'm pretty low on the royal totem pole." The man handcuffed to him said, "Your death will be another message." At least he'd see his parents again, if there was an afterlife. Jordan needed a hope right now, so he focused on his mother's face in his mind's eye as he lifted his chin. "Fine, get it over with. I'm tired of hearing your voice." The older man with the gun said, "You're a reckless boy. Shoot me or let me out of here." Jordan's pulse spiked. The old man laughed at him. "Brave words, boy." For a second, he hoped they'd let him go as the young driver stopped the car suddenly. A boom echoed within the vehicle, and his chest burned. The shot had been fast, and he hadn't seen it coming. He closed his eyes and prayed that he'd see his parents again, though. When he opened his eyes, he saw he was bleeding as they placed him in a green field, out of the SUV. He laughed, though that made his chest buzz with more pain. "That hurt more than I thought." Blood even came out of his mouth. "See you in the next world." The old man saluted him as the three of them disappeared from view. Jordan coughed. "Doubtful. Murderers don't get the good spots." Tires squealed away. Jordan knew he had seconds left, but when he closed his eyes, he imagined kissing Martha again. She had been the one person who had made him happy. Her kiss on his lips still made his mouth feel tingles of desire, even now, even at the very end. Chapter 15. Martha glanced at the clock. She needed to make a fast decision. 1 month wasn't that long, and she always kept her word. If he didn't want to run to Jessica, she shouldn't push him. Her heart craved finding Jordan to tell him she'd been stupid and wrong. A divorce was the last thing she wanted. But he might just think she wanted temporary when she wanted so much more than that. If there was a chance that he could care for her, then she would wait for him. She needed to stop being fearful and pushing him away. And the truth was, she hadn't been honest with him about her heart or why she'd been so terrified. Her defenses made not sharing small details, like that she didn't drink, seem like a way of keeping her heart safe. Didn't she know that talking was the most important part of any relationship? Love wasn't something she'd ever experienced. She wasn't used to being emotional. She stayed off the radar so she could focus on her career goals and take care of herself because nobody else was going to do it. Until Jordan, that had been easy. She picked up her bag the second the professor left the room and quickly packed her stuff, including the new laptop that he'd been so thoughtful about getting for her. It wasn't Jordan's fault she'd blanked on a test. It was hers. She walked into the hallway and two huge, muscular men with badges joined her. They weren't cops, though, the blonde one said. Martha Bentley. Who are you? She read his business card. Diesel Bates, Omega-1 Defense, Home and Personal Protection. The man then said, we're to get you to the hospital. Goosebumps grew all over her, and instantly she felt something was wrong. She hugged herself as she asked, why do I need to go to the hospital? Diesel explained in a hushed, serious voice. Jordan's in critical condition, and you are in danger. Her entire body caved inward as she took a step back, winded, which was funny because she couldn't quite breathe. Jordan's in critical condition. What happened? He was shot, Diesel said. Oh my. No more words formed. He'd been shot, and the last thing she'd ever done was tell him she wanted a divorce. He needed to be okay. She needed to tell him how she felt and be truly honest, like he thought she was. There was no reason to be afraid. She then looked at the security guards and remembered Jordan's parents had been killed. She handed the card back as she met their intense gazes. What if they were lying? Wait, how do I know you're telling me the truth? The other man, Jax Murphy, nodded at her. Smart girl. Call his brother. Aiden Bentley is already at the hospital, and he knows our company and names. Right. Smart. She fished out her phone from her back pocket and dialed while she said, Omega-1 Defense sounds more like a military operation. We were once in Delta Force, Diesel answered. The phone clicked, and she asked fast, Aiden? Is Jordan okay? We don't know if he'll live or die, Aiden said. We need you here, now. Die? No, absolutely not. She was so cold. This was all her fault. She should have made him stay and eat lunch like a normal girl who loved someone. She couldn't even form words, but she stared at the two men and finally asked her stupid question. Did you send Diesel and Jax from Omega-1 Defense to get me? Yes, Diesel and Jax, Aiden said. She nodded at them, and they walked beside her as they headed toward the exit. We're on our way. They rushed her toward a black Lincoln Town car parked on the curb, which was technically illegal, but there was no ticket. She got in the back. Who shot Jordan? Diesel answered as Jax took the wheel. We don't know, ma'am. We were sent to find him and you. Luckily, we were close to where we found him, because it seems we all live in the same building. I'm glad you did. If Jordan lived, they were all in the same building. She folded her hands together and said a fast prayer. He was bleeding out when we arrived and called 911. Her entire nervous system hummed and slowed down. This seemed so impossible. Jordan had been right near her, just at lunch. If she wasn't sitting down, she might have fainted. Her hands clutched the leather seat as they drove south, toward the hospital. How did they get to him? Diesel answered like it wasn't a big deal. They crashed into his car and then shot him, leaving him to die. For once, her brain wasn't analyzing everything. She couldn't feel anything, and she couldn't think. She just existed. All she wanted to do was scream, but she said so calmly, like she was a robot. Jordan loved that car. This is awful. Seriously, how those words even came out of her, she had no idea. Who cared about a car when his life was at stake? Diesel spoke from the front seat to her as they pulled into the hospital lot. He's alive still, so there is hope. She massaged the back of her neck and swallowed as Jax stopped at the front door. You have to be right. Diesel opened her door. Let's get you inside. Good. Until she saw Jordan, she'd never be sure of anything else. She walked with her backpack still attached to her as they made their way through the ER to a surgery waiting room. At least Diesel knew the path. As they entered the waiting area, Sienna and Aiden both stood from their seats and hugged her immediately. Tears threatened as this suddenly became real. Aiden, Sienna, "Where is Jordan?" Sienna pointed her toward the front desk of the room. "He's still in the OR. The nurse will want to speak to you." Her? No. She shouldn't talk to authorities about any of this. She'd been so stupid and asked for a divorce. Jordan being here was her fault. She shook from head to toe. "Why?" Aiden then said, "Because you're his wife, so you must make decisions." Her lips parted and her eyes widened. "What? You're his brother." Sienna squeezed her hand, and that somehow brought strength into her trembling body. "That's the law, so go. I'll do what I think is best." She swore she'd do the best she could. She'd never hurt Jordan, ever again. She took a few timid steps and then said to the nurse, "Hi, I'm Martha Bentley." The nurse looked up from her computer and asked, "Are you the wife?" "Yes." Martha hugged herself. Standing, the nurse handed Martha paperwork and said, "Fill out the forms here. Would you want us to resuscitate if he flatlines?" "What?" "Of course. He needed to live so she could do what was best for him." "Yes." The nurse then asked, "And would you want him to get a blood transfusion if that was necessary?" Her stomach knotted so tight she wasn't sure she could breathe, but somehow she said, "Yes, do everything you can to save him. How is he?" The nurse gave her a curt smile. "We'll hear soon from the OR if the surgery was successful. Please fill out those forms." She took the clipboard, pen, and forms back to Aiden, as he'd know more of the answers to the standard questions. She sat and said, "I'm in shock. Be strong." Sienna patted her shoulder. Aiden quickly filled out all the insurance information. Once he finished, she filled out her information and then walked back to the desk, handing the papers in like this wasn't a big deal, just any old day when her husband could be dying. If anything happened to Jordan, she'd never be okay. She loved him. The word reverberated through her, and she wanted to cry. Everything had been so wrong. Her heart began to race. Once again, she returned to her seat, and Sienna asked, "What happened?" "Nothing. I hope we'll know soon." Aiden jumped out of his chair and asked in a throaty tone, "Do you want anything from the cafeteria?" From the sudden way he'd leapt up, she assumed he needed a minute. Hopefully that was all. If he knew something she didn't, then no, she needed to not think about stupid possibilities that weren't true. She nodded. "My throat is dry. Water would be good." Aiden walked off, and Sienna waffled between following him or staying. Martha took her hand and said, "Sit with me." Sienna nodded and stayed. Ambulance sirens echoed in the distance. In the corner, people cried while they spoke to a nurse. Good news, bad news. Martha wanted to run past them and somehow find Jordan. Whatever happened to his parents couldn't be his fate. But she wasn't some superhero. She had no power here. She wasn't even a doctor. And she'd go mad if she continued to think the worst. So she turned toward Sienna and asked, "Do we know who shot him and left him like that?" Sienna shook her head. "The police are investigating, though we wish Jordan would have called them after that incident today." "What incident?" Martha's ears perked. Sienna realized that Martha didn't know and explained. "When a group of men in an SUV attacked him in the parking lot of your college, Jordan called Aiden and accepted help and asked for security for you. And his last thoughts were for her safety after how awful she'd treated him. Seriously, she felt cold as she'd been so horrible. He ordered security for me after he'd been threatened." Sienna gave her a sweet smile that matched her words. Of course, he's your husband. And the trust they both had in her she absolutely didn't deserve. They didn't know how awful a wife she'd been. She tried to change the subject so she wouldn't cry. "Do the police have any leads?" Sienna shook her head. "I haven't heard. We've been here praying." Of course, Martha felt numb. Neither woman said anything else as the family who was crying all filed out of the OR waiting area and Aiden returned to the room. He handed her a cup of water and Martha wrapped her fingers around the cool plastic. "Thanks, Aiden." The water didn't help. Every second that ticked by felt like another prick at her skin and her stomach rolled with nausea. Her mind swirled that all of this was because of her. Suddenly Aiden straightened and said, "Here comes the nurse. There must be news." All she wanted right now was good news. She wasn't ready to say goodbye, but her body stretched tighter than a rubber band as the nurse said, "Mrs. Bentley." "Yes?" The nurse waved at her. "Come with me." Oh no, Jordan would want his brother over her anyhow. She cringed as the divorce conversation replayed in her mind. The nurse saw her backward glance and said, "We only allow one visitor at a time." Fair enough. She dug her heels in the ground and wished she had pockets in her slacks to hide her hands in as she asked, "Do you want to go first, Aiden?" Aiden urged her to go. "I just want to know how he is." The nurse then nodded and must have realized the three of them were all together, so she said, "He's unconscious. Until he wakes, we won't be sure of the extent of his injuries. He lost a lot of blood, but the doctors removed the bullet and stopped the bleeding." Okay, at least the bullet was gone. That was good. But Diesel had said he'd almost bled out on the street. Her own blood ran cold that this wasn't over. Aiden gently nudged her forward. "Go, Martha." She nodded and followed the nurse. The hallway had TV monitors behind the nurse's station that clearly followed vitals. The hall was white, and a minute later she reached a private room with a window that overlooked a park. Her gaze instantly shifted to the bed. Jordan's face was white, and the tubes in his nose with his eyes closed made him seem ready to meet the angels. She dragged a green chair to his side and waited for the nurse to leave. She ran her hands through his hair, and his skin was ice cold. That couldn't be good. The tears she'd held back now washed down her cheeks. She couldn't stop them. She pressed forward and kissed his cold lips as she clutched his clammy hands. If she could trade places with him, she'd do it in a heartbeat. She whispered in between her sobs, "Jordan, I can't believe this happened to you. I'm sorry I wasn't there." No answer came. She sat back down on the chair, still clutching his hand. He'd been good to her even when she'd been defensive and acting beyond stupid. She swallowed a few of her tears, prayed, and then said out loud, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm sorry I pulled away because I love you. I'm so sorry I messed up and pretended everything was just business. That's absolutely the last thing I wanted from you." Silence clung in the air, except for the beeps from the monitor. She wasn't sure what else to do but hold him. If he woke up, she'd tell him everything because she'd been so stupid before. Even if he told her to go, she would. He needed to wake up and live. He needed to be happy. Chapter 16. Jordan Bentley relived seeing the three men who'd left him to die. The green grass had been wet, and his fingers had touched the blades of the grass until he'd lost conscious. Light reflected above him, but there was no heat. This wasn't the sun. He blinked and stared at the white lights and white ceiling. Somehow, he'd lived. His toes wiggled and his fingers opened and closed. Good. Now he needed to find Martha to apologize, though he tried to speak. His throat was dry, and the machine next to be him beeped as he asked, "Where am I?" The voice of an angel said, "Jordan, you're awake." He turned his neck toward her and saw her jump off a small green chair that folded back as she ran toward his bed. She took his hand. "We were so afraid." Her fingers felt good around him. His heart lightened as he stared into her big brown eyes. "Martha?" She took her hand back and fumbled with her phone that she tugged out of her back pocket as nurses ran into the room. She didn't look at him as she said, "Yeah, I told your brother I'd call him right away." He reached out for her, but she didn't take his hand. "You're here?" "Yes, She realized that he wanted to touch her and took his fingers. He tried to tug her closer, but he was weak. She used her opposite thumb to text and he said, "Wait." Her hands shook, but she nodded and put her phone down when he caressed her face. "Okay, just let me text Aiden that I'll call after the nurses. He's worried. I want to talk to you." He held her gaze. Alone. She dropped the phone on his bed and wiped her tear that fell down her cheek as she gazed at him. "I'm just happy you're alive." The nurses shooed her back, so she grabbed her phone out of the way. The nurse held a thermometer to his forehead and asked, "What's your name?" "Jordan Bentley," he answered. The nurse nodded at him and then asked, "Can you wiggle your fingers?" More rapid-fire questions commenced, and he answered them all while Martha texted his brother. The beep of her phone echoed in the air while the nurse finished with him and said, "The doctor will be in shortly." "Thanks." He motioned for Martha to return to his bedside. She followed and showed him her text chain with Aiden immediately. He read fast. He's awake and knows who he is. What does the doctor say? The nurses are checking him now. I'll keep you updated. We'll be there at 8 a.m. Okay. He pushed the phone out of his view and glanced up at her. This time, he needed to tell her how he felt before it was too late. His body grew warm, and he held her hand tighter. We have a few hours then. She combed his hair with her other hand. I'm sure it's rush hour traffic holding your brother back. For the first time in forever, Jordan hoped for something. The bubble grew in his chest, but he needed to talk to Martha and let her know how he felt and what he wanted. She'd changed him so much. He swallowed and said, "For the moment, they're gone. It's just you and me, Martha." She pulled back and sat on the chair beside his bed. Then, without warning, she started talking so intensely that he had to listen. I'm sorry I was scared to tell you that it wasn't just like in my heart. I was falling for you faster than I thought possible, and falling in love with you scared me to death. But losing you would be way worse. Good. Falling was a start because he'd absolutely already fallen for her. He needed to explain how stupid he'd been and how he'd never do that again, as long as she stayed with him. He met her gaze and said, I pushed you away too, because I thought you wouldn't fit in my world. She nodded like she completely agreed. That's probably true. Jessica is a better choice. No. Somehow he'd already messed this up because she didn't understand. He needed to give her the out that she deserved. He'd not hold her here if she wanted to be somewhere else, especially if she was in love with someone else. So he let her hand go and said, Ricky saved my life earlier. If you are in love with him, I won't make you stay. She hugged her hands to her sides, under her arms as if cold. He saved you? So she must be in love with him too. Falling wasn't the same thing, and he'd not steal her happiness. She and Ricky had spent years together. Jordan needed to resign himself that she wasn't his, though the thought left him numb. He wanted to talk about you and warned me to treat you right. In her nervous habit, she pushed her hair behind her ears and shook her head. He shouldn't have done that. He's in love with you, Martha. She leaned forward and caressed his cheek with her soft hands. But I'm in love with you. He'll find someone who loves him. A huge beacon of light shone in his heart. Anything was possible now. He smiled, which was something he thought he couldn't do before he met her, and gripped her arms so she wouldn't leave. Are you sure? Yes. She wrapped him in a hug, half falling in the bed. Her warmth next to him made his heart race. The monitors beside him went off the charts though, and she hopped off the bed as he said, Wait. Nurses ran in and checked the machine. A woman with her arms crossed and reading a chart then came in and said, Glad to see you up, Mr. Bentley. We weren't sure you'd make it. Clearly she was the doctor, but he read her badge and confirmed before he said, I'm scrappy that way. The dark-haired doctor closed her chart and hugged it. You are in excellent health, you're young, and you're very lucky. Will the first live then? He hoped to get the tube out of his nose and scoot out the door when his brother showed up. She tapped on her chart and then shone a light in his eyes. You're up and conscious, but I'm keeping you under observation for 24 hours. One day more in the hospital wasn't that bad, though he wanted to leave. What mattered the most was that Martha loved him. He needed to tell her how he felt too. How do you feel? Lightheaded, but otherwise I'm okay. The doctor wrote that down and said, You lost a lot of blood, and we have you on painkillers, which will cause dizziness. Just stay calm and talk to your beautiful wife. I will, he said, and the doctor turned and left. Once they were alone again, Martha squeezed his hand and caught his full attention as she said, So, the doctor said you need to stay calm. The security team Aiden hired is already upping our condo security system to keep you out of danger once we go home. None of that mattered. If she was with him, he had everything he'd ever need. Do you want to come home with me? Something flickered in her mind because her body flinched, though she held him and said, I'll keep my promise to you. He needed to tell her. No more delay. He tried to sit up and pushed a button from the remote control. The bed made noise as he climbed higher, but once the buzz ended, he said, That's not good enough anymore. She narrowed her eyes. Why not? He held her hand to his chest, away from the bullet wound, and confessed, "Because a month of you isn't enough for me." "It's not?" She gingerly sat on the bed beside him. His heartbeat sped up. Hopefully the words he needed to say came before the nurses returned, so he spoke faster. "Martha, you're the only woman I've ever met that made me feel anything." She brushed his hair like it was in his face. "It's good to feel." He stopped her machinations and held her still. "You don't get it." "What don't I get?" Her wide eyes made his lips tingle to kiss her again. Hardness grew in his body, and he coughed, letting her go. At least that part of him still worked, but he completely ignored the physical, swallowed and hoped she accepted the truth, that "I'm in love with you too. When I thought I was going to die, all I wanted was for you to live a good life." She climbed up and hugged him, and they both ignored the monitors that grew louder as she said, "I can, now that you're here." He let her go before the nurses interrupted them, but he kissed her shoulder. "And you can't leave. I'm not going anywhere without you." She laughed low and gentle. He ran his hands over her soft hair and brought her head toward his, lifting his lips to hers. When their mouths met, he was truly in heaven. With Martha, anything was possible, and love was all that mattered. Chapter 17. Jordan walked with crutches from his garage car elevator that his wife now worked like a pro. She didn't jerk the car upon entry, so she must have driven her Mercedes more than a few times since he'd been in the hospital. She followed behind him like she might catch him if he fell, which was funny because she wasn't nearly as strong as him physically, and he'd probably crush her. So he was careful. He struggled with the door, and she slipped in front of him to open it. The scream coming from the living room could only be one person. He walked in with his crutches and saw the curly brown hair of his sister flopping around as she jumped up from the couch. She ran over to him, arms out wide. "Welcome home, Jordan. Arwa." He hugged her carefully. Martha came in after them. He wished he could hold her hand, but he needed to hold the crutches. Martha put the hospital bag of stuff he'd somehow collected down near the hall to their rooms and said, "Your sister flew in last night. We told her it was better to see you this morning." This was another thing they needed to talk about, because he absolutely didn't want separate rooms anymore. Her bedroom could be a great study area or exercise room. The doctor had said to stay in shape, and he'd follow that advice by making love to his wife. He turned to his sister. "Glad to see you." She gently slapped him on the back of the head and then plopped down on his couch. "How come you didn't take the security, Jordan? That sounds so stupid." He used his crutches and joined her on the couch. Had it been pride or denial that his parents had been killed and the people responsible not yet caught? Yeah, it was. "I should have accepted." Arwa then looked up at Martha and asked, "So you're okay that you married an idiot?" Martha sat beside him, massaging his thigh. "He's not an idiot, Arwa." Her simple touch set him off. He needed to be alone with his wife. Arwa had no clue as she sipped her lemonade. "Well, at least he didn't marry someone like Jessica. I couldn't stand her. Now I have Sienna as a real sister, and hopefully we will get along, Martha, because I think you're smart and kind." Jordan reached over to squeeze just above her knee. "And honest." Martha laughed and moved his hand. "Your brother is being sweet." That wasn't good. He wanted her, physically, emotionally, all the way. Arwa luckily finished her glass, put it down and stood. "Well, I'll let you relax and get to bed, Jordan. Rest, because I want you both and Sienna and Aiden to all go on a vacation with me. I'm thinking a cruise, so we can forget to watch our backs for a few days." Jordan didn't get up in time as she headed toward the door. "Sounds nice, Arwa." Martha walked with her in the moments it took for him to get to his feet. The two women said a fast goodbye, and Martha joined him in the hall. Right now, they needed to talk about the bedrooms. He used his crutches but headed toward his room, hoping she'd follow. Martha grabbed the bag and did as he wanted while she said, "Your sister is a handful." That's putting it mildly. He opened his bedroom door. Now she put the bag on his nightstand and then flipped his sheets down and patted the bed. "Let's get you to bed." He leaned the crutches on the edge and eased himself on the mattress while he asked, "How did you do on your bio test?" She gave him a sassy, almost bad girl smile. "An A. Did you expect anything less? Good." She didn't need to fear grades but take pride in them. He patted the bed beside him to get her to sit. "You can be a doctor if you want." She plopped down on the bed, making it bounce as she joined him. "That's too hard for me. I couldn't handle that, but the psych doctorate is still the goal." "Good." He laced his fingers with hers. Martha's presence calmed him in a way no one else ever had. She scooted closer to him and asked, "So what happens in 30 days? Right. He wasn't sure what she wanted exactly other than to be together, so he hedged for a minute and his skin buzzed. Then he lowered his voice and suggested, "We get divorced, and if you want, we can be like my brother and get married again." She didn't move, but her eyes narrowed and she asked like it was a condition, "Why do you want the divorce? Seriously." He'd been shot. The police had no clues regarding the men despite his descriptions. This was related to the oil fields and his bloodline. One simple step cut half the reason to target them out. "Because I don't want the throne. You don't know the throne. So we get to stay safe from danger." She smiled like she completely agreed and just needed to hear him. He relaxed his shoulders as she said, "Okay, as long as you keep security." "Deal." He leaned over, kissing her cheek. Her face turned red, but she was adorable as she wrapped her arms around him and said, "Now come here." Her lips were like fuel to his fire. He pressed harder and she fell backwards on the bed while he leaned over her. This was everything. She was here. He continued to kiss her until his hand slipped under her t-shirt. She put her hand on his and her eyes widened as she asked, "What are you doing?" He thought he'd been obvious, but he answered without moving a muscle. "Taking your shirt off and getting you back in my bed where I intend to keep you." She laughed and let his arm go as she lifted one leg to cradle him closer. "So that's what you want with me now?" His hands ached to touch her, everywhere. She must know that, as he leaned down for another scorching kiss. "I want you every night for the rest of our lives." Another laugh escaped her mouth and she nodded. "That sounds great. I'm in." They were together at last. The world was his oyster, and Martha was his pearl that he intended to keep. She was the one. Chapter 18. A few weeks later. Martha checked her carry-on bag for the last time. Shampoo, toothbrushes, hairbrushes, everything was there. If not, they'd have to buy whatever they needed. She carried the bag into the living area where Jordan had brought their suitcases. Security carried everything to the garage and toward their black SUV trunk with Diesel and Jax. He walked away from them the moment he saw her and asked, "Are you ready for our cruise?" She handed him the small bag. "This was a great idea. I'm excited to get away with you." He kissed her fast and her heart was lighter when he said, "I'm happy just being with you." She walked beside him toward the car. "Happy 1-month anniversary." He winked at her. They'd filed divorce papers last night that were finalized this morning, and then they remarried again at the courthouse. Happy wedding day for the second time. The cruise across the Mediterranean Sea for 3 weeks was going to be great. She bounced on her feet as she hopped into the back seat, and Jordan scooted in beside her. "And finals are over, so less mental stress. On the ship, once security clears us, we can let our hair down and see the Greek Isles. I've never left the country." He took her hand, and a spark raced through her. Her skin and body was pumped with adrenaline, though he had no idea when he said, "We'll see the world if that's on your list." The back door to the SUV closed, which meant they had only seconds alone before their security team joined them to escort them to the car and drive them to the airport. She forgot all that the moment his fingers caressed her face. "Being with you is all that matters." "I love you," she whispered and closed her eyes, waiting for his kiss. He quickly said, "Good, because I love you too." Then his lips met hers, and the world faded away. Somehow her temporary husband had become the only one for her and made her forget her doubts. Happily ever after was possible. Jordan was alive, in her arms, and they had a chance at forever. Thank you for reading. I hope you enjoyed Jordan and Martha's marriage on Convenience Romance as much as I did. Next in the series is cousin Logan Bentley, who was arrested for a crime he didn't commit, and to get out of jail marries Hannah Hughes in Irresistibly Charming. Or you'll love the billionaire family drama of the House of Morgan, where romance is the only cure that might heal the past. The first book, Secret Crush, is free and available where you can see how the House of Morgan all started. If you loved Irresistibly Lost, You'll love the royal series of a small European country next to Italy and the Princes of Afsi romances. The first book, Forbidden Crown, is available for free in a modern-day retelling of Cinderella, where an insurance agent says yes to a prince's sudden proposal. And to find out about new books, sign up for my newsletter, https://victoriapinder.com, about the author. USA Today best-selling author Victoria Pinder grew up in Irish Catholic Boston, then moved to Miami. Eventually, found that writing is her passion. She always wrote stories to entertain herself. Her parents are practical-minded people demanding a job, but when she sat down to see what she enjoyed doing, writing became obvious. Visit my website and download a free novel, www.victoriapinder.com.